Chapter 3002. Yiqing Luo's thoughts were all placed on how to stop Leng Yan, how to fight for time for Dmo Xian to cure the goo and protect him. Xia Ba's time and time again harassment and obstructions had already made Yiqing Luo lose her patience. Her brows were frozen as her vision swept past Zhou Mo and Gue Wu who were entangled in battle. Then she looked towards the brothers and little companions who were fighting against secluded palace. Her brows sunk slightly. The sky filled with evil qi, following the continuous battle, started to spread towards the surroundings of the Sacred Maiden Institute. Not too long later, this gust of evil qi would definitely be able to envelop the entire Sacred Maiden Institute. Once it was enveloped by the evil qi, the entire Sacred Maiden Institute would sink into hell. All living beings, turned into nothingness, reduced to nothingness. Time was pressing. There was no time for her to make any comprehensive considerations. Now, she could only try her best to prevent herself from suffering from the backlash. Yiqing Luo's brows sunk as she directly raised the glower flame fan in her hands, sweeping up 100,000 feet wind wave. Her other hand, swiftly pressed onto her profound jade heart. Profound qi was activated. Profound jade heart started to burn. She gripped the glower flame fan tightly as the profound qi encircled it even more. The 100,000 feet wind wave was like a raging wave, directly surging towards Xia Ba. Xia Ba's heart was filled with the thought of directly suppressing Yiqing Luo, bringing her away forcefully. His attack was to stick close to Yiqing Luo's face, striking at Yiqing Luo from a close distance. But when Yiqing Luo's strike landed, no matter how fast Xia Ba's reaction was, he was also swallowed by the 100,000 feet wind wave. That horrifying momentum, as compared to when he had just advanced, was much thicker. Xia Ba was sent flying, crashing heavily onto the rubble of the ruins. The ground exploded into a huge deep pit. This strike could be said to be completely withstood by Xia Ba. He fell into that huge deep pit. His entire body was covered with blood scars. But he wasn't angry, instead he started laughing maniacally. That withered body stood up shakily from the deep pit. The evil qi in his entire body kept seeping into his body. He laughed crazily and malevolently. Good. Good. After advancing, you can still raise your battle prowess in a short period of time. This is too inconceivable. This seed really wants to dig out your profound heart jade and take a look. I want to see just what quality profound heart jade is that it can actually reach such a realm. Hearing evil tyrant's crazed and excited voice, Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter. This kind of lunatic who could not be caught at all. Yiqing Luo really didn't know how to deal with it. The stronger she is. The more excited Xia Ba was, the more excited he became. The more he studied her, the more he wanted to do research on her. To deal with such a lunatic. Unless he could really kill him. Otherwise, he would harass her over and over again. After all, lunatics were not afraid of death. Just as Yiqing Luo was thinking about how to trap Xia Ba, she was secretly mobilizing the profound qi in her body, as it continuously flushed into her profound heart jade. Evil tyrant's laughter suddenly stopped. That terrifying face was tightly scrunched up into a ball. Yiqing Luo noticed this. He quickly looked in the direction of Leng Yan. As expected, Leng Yan had separated from Zhou Mo and Gue Wu. The three of them faced each other, suspended in midair. Whereas Leng Yan's gaze looked towards Xia Ba. Yiqing Luo's heart thumped. Apparently, this Leng Yan and Xia Ba were carrying out a secret exchange. What plan did they have? Very quickly, Leng Yan and Xia Ba gave their answer. Just in this one breath's time. Chapter 3003. Not good. Yiqing Luo's heart turned cold as she followed closely in the direction of Gue Wu and Zhou Mo. However, she was still a step too slow. Bang! Xia Ba brought along an incomparably sharp and dense evil qi, and directly attacked in the direction of the ghost warrior. The terrifying profound strength was like a surging wave, rolling and rolling continuously. Evil Tyrant's attack was completely unexpected. Gue Wu and Zhou Mo were intimidated by the demonic aura, causing them to take several steps back. They want to switch their line of sight. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips tightly. Lang Yan's destructive power is very strong and the evil qi he emits is enough to destroy all living things in the Miao tribe, turning this place into nothingness. They want to use Xia Ba to stall the two of you, and then let Lang Yan destroy the Saintis Institute. You are indeed worthy of being my disciple. Xia Ba didn't deny it and laughed coldly. So what if you know? Can you stop it? Xia Ba let out a cold grin. Without any hesitation, his figure sped forward like a sharp blade. Endless evil energy spread in all directions. On the other hand, Lang Yan found an opportunity. The moment Evil Tyrant rushed over, he quickly rushed in the direction of the Saintis Yard. As he charged forward, the path he took was enveloped by a black aura. The air condensed, and space seemed to be on the verge of shattering. In midair, cracks that resembled spiderwebs appeared. After Yiqing Luo's reminder, Gue Wu shifted his focus and looked at Lang Yan, who had already entered the Saintis courtyard. After seeing the cracks spreading all around, the expression on his face became gloomy. Space explosion. You guys actually want to use this kind of demonic technique? Gue Wu's voice, which had always been calm, was now brimming with anger. You want to shatter this space? Zhou Mo turned pale with fright. Do you know what will happen if the space explodes? Xia Ba laughed sinisterly. Consequences. What does it have to do with me and the underworld palace? The faces of Gue Wu and Zhou Mo turned extremely ugly. They had already made up their minds to push all the blame onto the Palace of Darkness. That was why he dared to use such evil arts so brazenly. Space exploded. It was a demonic technique that could destroy a confined space. This was also what Evil Tyrant had been talking about. Let the Miao tribe fall into the void. Bang, bang, bang. Under the shroud of evil energy, the Holy Maiden Institute set off an earth-shattering explosion that was enough to deafen the eardrums. The destructive power released by Lang Yan had spread throughout the entire Saintis courtyard. The Saintis Institute, which had already been reduced to ruins because of the war, was now in ruins. Under such a powerful destructive force, Feng Lin's body trembled. It was a complete mess. The speed of destruction caused everyone to turn pale with fright. Wave after wave of horrifying dark force was still surging. Shao Yi, Jin Zi. Run! Run! Yiqing Luo's pupils dilated as she cried out sharply, Qi Yan, Shi Ju, quick! Protect them and evacuate first. For a time, there was chaos outside the Saintis courtyard. Yan Shao Yi and the others were protected by Shi Ju and Qi Yan. And Yiqing Luo's reminder was timely. After the few of them retreated, they were not injured by the powerful destructive force. But the secluded Darkness Palace disciples who were still searching for Dmo Xian's whereabouts in the Holy Maiden courtyard. He didn't even have the time to scream. They were directly swallowed by this powerful and boundless energy. Those lives, not even a drop of blood was spilled. They were completely swallowed and turned into nothingness. Chapter 3004. They wanted to escape. But under this kind of power, they couldn't move an inch. Boom, boom, boom. Bam, bam, bam. The deafening sound continued to explode. The entire Sacred Maiden Institute space was filled with black cracks as the earth quaked and the mountains shook. The thick and boundless chi waves were still spreading out. The ghost martial artist, who was still fighting with Xiaba, was shaken out of the battle range by the powerful chi. His cold eyes looked at the Saintess Institute. He frowned as he spoke in a low voice, "Sacred Maiden Institute. Can't be saved." Zhou elbowed Gue Wu hard as he shot a glance towards Yiqing Luo's direction, indicating for him to shut up. However, Gue Wu didn't say a word. That didn't mean that Xiaba, who had victory in his hands, wouldn't ridicule them, ha ha ha. That's right. Ling Yan has already marked the area where the space will explode. This Sacred Maiden Institute, everything will disappear. He laughed sinisterly as his eyes were filled with madness. The next one is the Miao tribe's turn. Do you think that you can stop it? And at this moment, Ling Yan was very cooperative as he exploded with an increasingly intense destructive power. Everyone felt a violent tremor beneath their feet. Sacred Maiden Institute started to collapse downwards. The majestic destructive power was like a tornado of magnitude 10 or more, violently devouring everything. Ah Xian! This scene made Yiqing Luo's pupils constricted abruptly. Her eyes turned red as she almost lost all her rationality. Her feet moved as she immediately dashed towards the direction of Sacred Maiden Institute. Qing Luo! Little Qing Luo! Gue Wu and Zhou cried out in shock. One by one, they wanted to go up and stop Yiqing Luo. But after Sacred Maiden Institute collapsed and Xiaoba's words, Yiqing Luo had already lost all ability to think. Space exploded. Even Dmo Xian, who was in Sacred Maiden Institute's secret room, would also be engulfed by this force. How could she let her Xian be engulfed by the space explosion? You ants also want to stop me. Ling Yan sensed Yiqing Luo's approaching figure as he sneered, his eyes filled with disdain. His hand suddenly moved as his palm flipped. Immediately, a burst of black qi exploded from his palm, shooting straight towards Yiqing Luo's back. The raging energy was like a ferocious wild beast as it struck Yiqing Luo's back without any hesitation. Oh! Yiqing Luo gave a muffled groan as her face turned pale. He spat out a mouthful of blood. However, this did not stop her from moving forward. The red blur was still rushing toward the Saintess Institute at the fastest speed. The entire space of the Saintess courtyard was filled with layers of evil energy. It was like a sharp blade, cutting through everything around it. Whereas Yiqing Luo seemed as though she didn't notice anything as she kept on rushing towards the Sacred Maiden courtyard. Endless evil energy enveloped everything. The people outside could not see what was happening in the Saintess yard at all. Yo, no wonder that old fogey Xiaba has taken a fancy to you. You're indeed a rare talent to be able to withstand my palm strike. Ling Yan's tone was filled with surprise as his pair of evil cold eyes stared at Yiqing Luo's figure. He licked his lips and laughed sinisterly. What a pity, you will also be destroyed along with this broken place. Yiqing Luo's breathing tightened. Her chest felt stuffy and there seemed to be a fishy sweetness in her throat as it kept on surging. She panted lightly as her eyes were filled with determination. The belief of seeing Dmo Xian and taking him away made her not fall. Chapter 3005. Gue Wu's expression turned solemn as he tightly knitted his brows. Zhou Mo gritted his teeth. These people are from the Earth domain. What they were doing now was completely destroying the peace in the lower realm. Even if we make a move and the higher-ups blame us, we are doing this for the sake of balance in the lower realm. Gue Wu's face remained solemn, not saying a word. Zhou Mo simply shook off Gue Wu's hand. Forget it. You're afraid of being investigated by the higher-ups, but I'm not. With that, he flicked his sleeves and was about to rush to the Saintess courtyard. Before he could move, his shoulder was pressed down by Gue Wu's hand. It's not that I don't want to make a move, it's that there's no need for us to make a move now. Gue Wu stared in the direction of the Holy Maiden Institute as he spoke indifferently. What do you mean? Turning his head, Zhou Mo slapped away Gue Wu's hand. This slap was filled with anger, and it was also very powerful. Gue Wu's hands had turned red from all the clapping. However, Gue Wu did not care about it. Retracting his hand, a profound look appeared on his face. This is that girl's tribulation, we can't stop it. F***ck. Zhou Mo cursed. I don't have the time to listen to your mysterious talk. If it was someone else, Leng Yan's move just now would have crippled that girl even if it didn't kill her. Gue Wu narrowed his deep and unfathomable eyes. As for that lass, she managed to hold on. Sister. Sister was hurt by that monster. All of a sudden, Kitty Lee rushed forward and grabbed onto Gue Wu's arm. What do you guys think happened to Big Sister? The Saintess Yard was shrouded in a large evil aura. When Yen Xiao Yi and the rest looked over, it was a black and oppressive evil aura. Among those present, only Gue Wu and Zhou Mo could see what was happening in the Saintess Institute. Zhou Mo hugged Kitty Lee, glanced at Gue Wu and lowered his voice. Wu said nothing will happen, so little Qing Luo will definitely be fine. Kitty Lee's eyes were red and her cheeks were puffed up. The two of you, why didn't you stop them? They killed so many people. The two of you took action to maintain peace and justice. I'm not sure if anything will happen to Qing Luo. Gue Wu did not have any intention of comforting her. His voice was extremely cold as he continued, there's a mysterious power protecting her on her body. However, how long it can protect her will depend on her own luck. You. Kitty Lee was so angry that she clenched her claws tightly. In the end, you just don't want to make a move. You're afraid of getting into trouble. Little wild cat. Zhou Mo's brows creased as he called out to Kitty Lee in a low voice, as his arms hugged her even tighter. All of us are very worried about little Qing Luo. If he's really afraid of getting into trouble, he wouldn't be standing here. Kitty Lee turned her head angrily and struggled, you're not going to save him. Kitty could go by herself. Even if I die, I want to die with Big Sister. Just as they were messing around, Gue Wu suddenly said in a deep voice, the space-shattering demonic technique has begun. Kitty Lee was stunned. Their faces immediately turned pale, and they all stared at the Saintess Yard, which was surrounded by evil qi. The sky was so dark that they couldn't see anything. Leng Yan's destructive power and the might of the space-shattering demonic technique had exceeded Yi Qing Luo's imagination. Earlier Leng Yan's palm strike, although she had swiftly circulated the profound energy in her body to conjure an array barrier to block that strike. But after all, she had withstood a third of the power. This third of the power made it hard for her to breathe. If it wasn't for the fact that she had advanced earlier, and her own internal injury was almost healed, she was afraid that she would have become a corpse by now. She took a deep breath as she raised her eyes and looked in front. She was about to reach the Saintess Pavilion. Chapter 3006. But, just at this moment. Bam! A deafening explosion of energy was heard from behind. Endless evil qi covered the sky, violently and wantonly surged over. The evil qi filled the sky, tearing those black cracks in the air. Yi Qing Luo only felt a violent impact on her back. Her body was sent flying by the demonic aura and she landed heavily on the ground. That evil qi, terrifying and overbearing. It was like a raging storm, swallowing everything in its path. The cracks in the space, bit by bit, tore. The surrounding air was constantly being squeezed, obliterated. Yi Qing Luo struggled, trying to climb up from the ground. However, that evil aura was like Mount Tai pressing down on her, making it hard for her to breathe. Not only that. Under the impact of this evil qi, the space was torn. Yi Qing Luo could feel her internal organs in her body were stirring. So painful, as if in the next moment, she would be swallowed by this evil chi, turning into ashes. This kind of pain was not only physical pain. Even her soul seemed to be sucked away by this evil chi. Yiqing Luo couldn't tell what kind of feeling this was. Like there were numerous thin needles, densely packed, each sharp and cold, piercing her body. Pain. Heart-wrenching pain. Continued to spread in her body. That kind of soul-stripping. That kind of pain, as if her body was about to be minced, about to be incinerated. Made her consciousness a little dazed. Sigh. Suddenly, in the haze, she vaguely heard a helpless sigh. That voice seemed to be right beside her ear. Or as if it came from her heart. Who was it? Who was sighing? Yiqing Luo's consciousness regained some clarity. Valuing relationships and loyalty is a good thing, but for this relationship, to lose your life, is it really worth it? That voice rang softly beside her ear again. The voice was gentle, extremely pleasing to the ear. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered absent-mindedly. Her slender fingers slightly had the strength to move. Bit by bit, she curled her fingers tightly. Worth it. Worth it. Worth it. Because it was Xian, so it was worth it. You're so silly. That gentle voice gave another long sigh. Yiqing Luo's brows creased tightly as she struggled to open her eyes, trying to see clearly who was talking to her. However, as soon as he opened his eyes, immediately, a burning sensation surged up from his wrist. Yiqing Luo moaned painfully. And this feeling of the surging flames. Her consciousness also became much clearer. The hazy scene in front of him gradually became clearer. Apart from the surging evil aura, there was nothing else in the surroundings. It was as if the voice just now was just a figment of her imagination. Xiao. The sound of evil energy rushing about destroyed everything in the Holy Maiden courtyard. Wherever the evil aura went, it was reduced to nothingness. She held her breath. She could clearly feel that the surging evil aura was constantly trying to devour her. The burning sensation on his wrist continued. The heat was rising bit by bit. She frowned in pain, but her consciousness became clearer. However, her body was still being squeezed by the evil aura, and she was completely unable to move. She bit her lower lip, trying her best to restrain herself from being swallowed by the evil aura. As she vigilantly gathered her mental energy, she sized up the surroundings. Suddenly, her pupils contracted slightly, as it fixed on a certain direction. The surging evil aura kept moving towards that direction. Her heart suddenly trembled fiercely. Xian. Chapter 3007. That direction was the direction of Saint Maiden Pavilion. Xian was still in the secret room of Saint Maiden Pavilion. In front of her eyes, a tall figure seemed to appear. That purple-robed man with peerless elegance was smiling at her. Her eyelashes fluttered. Xian. When she saw this figure, her body seemed to be filled with energy. Her legs moved with difficulty as she pounced towards the direction of that figure. But at the next moment, endless surging evil chi madly surged towards that figure. Yiqing Luo's hands missed. She fell heavily onto the ground. She looked helplessly at the surging evil chi in front of her, completely swallowing that peerless elegance figure. Xian. 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 Yiqing Luo's heart felt a dull pain. She tried her best to call out Dmo Xian's name. But her throat seemed to be blocked by something, making her unable to make a single sound. Tears rolled down from the corners of her eyes. Drop by drop, fell onto her wrist. The scorching heat once again engulfed her. Still struggling on your deathbed? Ling Yan smiled sinisterly, his face filled with complacency. Bit by bit, he shifted his gaze to the opposite, on that row of people. On seeing those people, each and every one of them, their eyes were filled with hatred, as though they couldn't wait to cut him into 1,000 pieces. His smile became even more joyous. He loved this kind of gaze. Loved this kind of feeling, that they hated him, but couldn't do anything to him. This was the path of the strong which he pursued. No one dared to go against all his actions. So what if they hated him? What could they do to him? No living being can escape from this kind of evil art. You'd better give up. Ling Yan laughed sinisterly, not concealing his own complacency. This Seat's disciple is still inside. You should at least spare her life. Although Xiaoba's words had the intention to blame Ling Yan, but that tone was filled with pride. They, the people from Hell Palace, would absolutely not lose. Unless they were unwilling. Otherwise, there was no mission which could not be completed. What's the use of having that kind of disciple who doesn't know how to listen? Ling Yan gave a snort, as he didn't have any good impression towards Yiqing Luo. Xiaoba laughed cruelly. His gaze swept coldly towards Gue Wu and Zhou Mo, who had no intention of taking action. Since the two of you don't plan on interfering in this matter, the two of you should pretend that you don't know anything about today's matter. The Underworld Palace's target is only the two of them inside. His withered hand pointed to the Saintess Yard, which had been swallowed by the evil aura. Kitty Lee, who was in Zhou Mo's arms, couldn't hold it in any longer and roared, "You don't know. You dare to hurt my sister like this, and you want us to pretend that we don't know anything? Even if Kitty fights to the death, I'll bury all of you with me." Kitty. Zhou Mo hugged Kitty Lee tightly, his long arms pulling her into his embrace. Kitty Lee's cute little face was now covered in tears. Zhou Mo felt a dull pain in his heart. He tightened his grip. If Qing Luo dies, I will definitely not live on alone. Yan Xiaoyi clenched the black sickle blade in her hand tightly, her eyes filled with ruthless coldness. Qiao Jin's hand, which was wrapped around Yan Xiaoyi's slender waist, tightened. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something. But looking at the Saintess Yard, which was covered with evil aura. Eventually he shut his mouth. Apparently, he had tacitly agreed to Yan Xiaoyi's words. Ha ha ha. A bunch of ants also want to shine with the sun and moon. Ling Yan swept a disdainful glance at those people. In his eyes. Chapter 3008. And what you said makes sense. Suddenly, a low and deep voice slowly sounded. Everyone's line of sight turned towards the source of the voice. The one who spoke was the silent Gue Wu, who had been the target of everyone's complaints. Yan Xiaoyi's face immediately darkened. Master Gue Wu, we call you master because of your identity and we respect you. However, your actions today are not worthy of our respect for you. Qiao Jin pinched her wrist, indicating for her to stop speaking. Yan Xiaoyi was already angry, her eyes red as she stared at Gue Wu. Master Gue Wu is afraid of getting into trouble and is not willing to interfere in this matter. We have no complaints, after all, we are not on the same side. So, since Master Gue Wu only wants to watch from the side, then there is no need to help them and ridicule us. Yan Xiaoyi's words caused the scene to become extremely awkward. But no one spoke up to stop Yan Xiaoyi. Obviously, the others were also full of complaints towards Gue Wu's actions. But, just as Zhou Mo was racking his brains, trying to ease the atmosphere, the main character who was being criticized simply did not care about Yan Xiaoyi's words. Instead, he stared at Xiaoba's direction and said word by word. You guys are very self-aware. You two ants want to shine as brightly as the sun and moon. Instantly, the few angry people blinked their eyes, unable to react to the meaning of Gue Wu's words. The smiles on Xiaoba's and Leng Yan's faces also stiffened. Leng Yan's arrogant face instantly darkened as he sneered. "Ha, ants. A little rat that doesn't even dare to reveal his identity. I did not teach you a lesson, and you really think you're something." After saying that, his entire body surged with flames, and he was about to attack Gue Wu. But Gue Wu's expression did not change. In the depths of his cold eyes, there was a trace of coldness. "Coming." Gue Wu lightly spat out 2 words. Leng Yan frowned, thinking that Gue Wu was deliberately mystifying things. His figure was as fast as lightning, like an arrow released from a bow. The evil aura shrouded Gue Wu's direction. Following his actions, a powerful destructive power surged forth. Just as the evil aura was about to reach Gue Wu, suddenly, a burst of profound force colliding was heard. That thick and vast Xian Qi exploded in midair. The dark force rippled, and the surrounding spiritual Qi began to ripple. Leng Yan was forced to take a few steps back by the dark force and stopped his attack. "This power. No, it can't be." Leng Yan cried out in disbelief. He quickly looked in the direction of the Saintess Yard. He saw, standing on top of the Holy Maiden courtyard, which was filled with evil energy, the girl who looked like she would die in the next second spread her arms, her red dress fluttering in the wind. Then, an extremely domineering aura erupted from the girl's body. That power attracted all the spiritual energy in the surroundings, and it started to gather towards her. Ground, air, space, it began to shake violently. Xiaoba's pupils contracted upon seeing this. His cold eyes were filled with astonishment. How is this possible? How is it possible to escape from the devouring of the spatial explosion? The evil technique of the spatial explosion would never fail. All the creatures in the Saintess Yard should have been turned into nothingness. Chapter 3009. No. Not only alive. Xiaoba's breathing was suffocating. She advanced. Didn't she just advance? In such a short period of time, she can advance again. Yes. She advanced to the profound grade again. Yiqing Luo's profound grade was constantly rising. Moreover, it was a kind of explosive rise. The coquettish red glow shrouded the young lady's slender body, blending in with that fiery red robe. Like a blooming rose in flames, blooming till the end. Sky profound 4th grade. Sky profound 5th grade. Sky profound 6th grade, along with the advancement of profound grade. The coquettish red glow around Yiqing Luo also sped up. Spinning faster and faster. Spinning faster and faster. Finally, the spinning red glow suddenly surged towards Yiqing Luo's body. Endless red glow enveloped Yiqing Luo. Just at this moment, in the ruins, the ground surged. Faintly, a sharp, childlike voice suddenly rang. "Qi sense master, master is nearby, it's all right. With master around, everything will be fine." That voice was intermittent. As though it was very far away, but also seemed very close. The others couldn't hear it clearly. At this moment, the young lady who was suspended in midair, as though she was isolated from the world, suddenly opened her eyes. Her gaze swiftly looked towards the direction of the voice, looking over. Boom! Only to hear a roar. Violent, shocking profound energy exploded on Yiqing Luo's body. Her breathing gradually stabilized. The coquettish red glow calmly lingered around Yiqing Luo's body. Sky profound 8th grade. Yiqing Luo's profound grade finally stopped at the realm of sky profound 8th grade. Xiaoba was shocked by this surge of energy, as he retreated several steps. The gaze which he looked at Yiqing Luo was no longer that kind of excitement and ecstasy, but was filled with disbelief and fear. Just a little bit more. Yiqing Luo was just a little bit away from advancing to sky profound 9th grade. If it wasn't for the voice earlier, interrupting Yiqing Luo, Yiqing Luo was very likely to continue advancing. One must know. When he first met Yiqing Luo was just a low-leveled cultivator who had just stepped into Sky Profound realm. Later on when she advanced, she was only at Sky Profound 2nd grade. But now, in a short period of time, if it wasn't for the voices coming from the Sacred Maiden Institute which disrupted Yiqing Luo's thoughts, Yiqing Luo's profound grade would surpass his. Xia Ba, who had witnessed this scene with his own eyes, could not believe his eyes. He couldn't believe that a profound practitioner could raise his cultivation by so much in such a short period of time. Moreover, he didn't seem to be uncomfortable at all. Logically speaking, even if he relied on evil arts or other pills to quickly raise his profound rank. However, with his body's condition, there was no way he could withstand the sudden increase in profound strength. If it was more than what his body could bear, it was very likely that he would suffer a backlash. If it was light, his profound heart jade would be destroyed and he would lose all of his profound strength. In the worst case, his internal organs would rupture and he would die. However, Yiqing Luo had consecutively risen several grades, moreover it was the Sky Profound grade, this extremely difficult to advance profound grade. Yiqing Luo's body had not only withstood Sky Profound 8th grade profound energy. Moreover, it was obvious that he had fused this boundless and powerful energy with his own body. What kind of pervert was she? Was this little girl really only 15 years old? Xia Ba and Lang Yan were not the only ones. Everyone on the scene was shocked. Chapter 30:10. Everyone's gazes shifted towards Gue Wu in unison. Could it be? Right from the start, Gue Wu had no intention to make a move. Not because he was afraid of getting into trouble, but because he had long known that Yiqing Luo would advance at this moment. So he said that there was no need for him to make a move. Facing their gazes, Gue Wu's expression didn't change and his gaze didn't shift at all. Only using a deep and serene gaze, he stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking. Yiqing Luo could feel the surging profound energy in her body. Her entire body, limbs and bones were filled with boundless energy. Enveloped by the red glow, it made her eyes look enchanting. She looked towards the direction where the sound came from. Without any hesitation, she flew over. That was Chi-Chi's voice. She could vaguely sense Chi-Chi's presence. Chi-Chi was fine. Then, Yi and Ah Xian would definitely be fine. She would not let the so-called space explosion destroy the Sacred Maiden compound. She would not let anyone hurt Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo's figure was extremely swift. Lang Yan sensed Yiqing Luo's intention and his expression changed instantly as he shouted Xia Ba's name and flew towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Just as he was flying upwards, Lang Yan swiftly released a thick and overbearing evil qi to mend the crack which was broken by Yiqing Luo earlier. But, just as his evil qi was about to fill up that crack, what met him was a ray of red glow. Lang Yan only managed to see a remnant shadow brushing past. What entered his eyes was a red dress fluttering in the wind and an incoming leg. Bam! That leg landed directly on Lang Yan's face. Ah! Lang Yan cried out miserably as his body flew backwards. He covered his face with both hands. Blood gushed out wildly as it seeped out from his fingers. This leg, Yiqing Luo totally didn't show any mercy as it brought along a thick and terrifying energy as it kicked downwards. If it wasn't for Lang Yan's swift reaction. After being kicked, Zhang Wuji's expression changed. He swiftly mobilized his profound energy to block Yiqing Luo's energy. Otherwise, this kick would absolutely explode Lang Yan's head. Xia Ba's figure quickly appeared in front of Lang Yan. A pair of sinister cold eyes stared intently at Yiqing Luo. Scram! Icy cold words spat out from Yiqing Luo's lips. After Yiqing Luo finished her words, she turned around and headed towards that gap once again. But Yiqing Luo's figure flashed past. That red light, in the midst of the evil aura that filled the sky. It was as if he had opened up a straight path. It also tore a long hole in the space that Lang Yan had created with great difficulty. As a result, the space explosion demonic technique was forced to stop. Xia Ba's eyes widened. His expression congealed and his body was like a missile, chasing after Yiqing Luo's figure. Want to leave? He waved his palms out, and the evil aura seemed to be able to deal with the evil aura in the sky with ease. Yiqing Luo frowned as her expression sunk slightly and her feet moved. Just as Evil Tyrant was about to attack, the ghastly flame fan flipped. In the midst of this evil aura, it was like a flowing flame, shining with a bewitching light. Boom boom boom. Two bursts of profound energy collided. Instantly the hole in the space which had been shaken till it tore even more. Xia Ba frowned. Having his attack blocked by Yiqing Luo once again, he felt that there was no light on his face and his heart was burning with rage. Just Sky Profound 8th grade. He was a Sky Profound 9th grade cultivator. Chapter 3011. Especially when Yiqing Luo had just advanced to 8th grade and it was continuous advancement. Even if her body could take this kind of burden. But regarding the control of profound energy, Yiqing Luo was definitely not his match. He didn't believe it. He was the king of Hell Palace, how could he lose to a 15-year-old young lady? The sinister coldness in Xia Ba's eyes grew even more and he didn't suppress his energy as he clenched his fists and stomped his feet. Immediately, a majestic and thick profound energy surged out from Xia Ba's body. The entire space immediately sank into a violent tremor. Little lass, I'll let you see the power of Hell Palace. Xia Ba laughed sinisterly as his tone was filled with killing intent. Following that, Xia Ba's speed was obviously not on the same level as before. Moreover, the power he used was shockingly terrifying. Yiqing Luo's brows creased tightly as her eyes were filled with impatience. She didn't have any extra thoughts to waste on Xia Ba. She rushed into the secret room to check on Xian's situation. But, apparently, Xia Ba didn't intend to let her off so easily. The terrifying profound energy was accompanied by a tyrannical murderous intent. Yiqing Luo's brows creased tightly as she turned around and her footwork was extremely strange. It was just an afterimage. Xia Ba's attack brushed past her. Yiqing Luo's feet moved again as she unexpectedly shifted to Xia Ba's back. Her eyes were slightly cold as the glower flame fan in her hands was ignited with a ball of raging flame as it shot towards Xia Ba's back, aiming at the position of his heart as it fell down. From the first time she had advanced, Yiqing Luo could obviously feel that her reaction and sensing ability had increased tremendously. Just using her eyes, she could see through Xia Ba's attack. Now, this surge of energy in her body made her profound grade surge continuously. Her speed, attack power and explosive power had all increased. Facing Xia Ba, she could do it with ease. But Yiqing Luo's reaction was fast and unexpected. As the madman from hell, Xia Ba's reaction wasn't bad at all. Just when Yiqing Luo made her first move to move behind him, Xia Ba had already reacted. Just as Yiqing Luo's attack was about to land, Xia Ba swiftly turned around and locked Yiqing Luo's wrist. Hiss! The red glow on Yiqing Luo's arm instantly turned into a sharp blade, unrestrainedly piercing through Xia Ba's hand. Xiaoba sucked in a breath of cold air as he felt the pain. But he didn't let go of Yiqing Luo's wrist because of this piercing pain. On the contrary, his 5 fingers interlocked tightly as he pulled Yiqing Luo towards him. Trying to play mind games with me? Xiaoba sneered coldly, his eyes flashing with a bloodthirsty ruthlessness. He tightened his grip. He totally didn't care that his palm had been slashed by the sharp blade that Yiqing Luo had released, causing his hand to be filled with blood. His hand, which contained evil qi, kept tightening. It was as if he was going to break her wrist. Yiqing Luo's face turned pale. Xiaoba was tugging at the wrist that held the azure dew bracelet. The place where his 5 fingers were pinching was also on the veined patterns of the azure dew bracelet. Yiqing Luo only felt that the raging energy within her body seemed to be suppressed by something, blocking her limbs and bones, giving her a feeling that she was unable to recover. She struggled. Xiaoba tightened his grip. The energy in her limbs and bones seemed as if it was going to burst her meridians. Yiqing Luo's face turned paler by several shades as a chilly glint surfaced in her eyes. The gathered profound energy swiftly flushed onto her right arm. Chapter 30:12. This burn had obviously increased the heat. The burning feeling was getting more and more obvious. Xiaoba's expression turned extremely gloomy. The evil air which lingered around his face started to flow rapidly. Especially that wound on his face, as well as the surging birthmark, was so sinister that it made one's scalp go numb. But, even if it was being burned and cut by this scorching profound energy, Xiaoba still didn't loosen his grip on her wrist. The features on his face turned increasingly sinister, as it was extremely distorted. The burning got more and more intense. Xiaoba's hand increased the strength. Yiqing Luo was being pressured by the increasing strength, as the profound energy in her body kept on surging and expanding, trying to find an outlet to vent it out. What was Xiaoba trying to do? Wasn't he worried that his hand would be crippled by the profound energy? Wasn't he afraid, if he continued to be restrained, would he also suffer from the backlash of this profound energy? Just as Yiqing Luo was guessing Xiaoba's motive, she heard Yan Xiaoyi and the others' cries of alarm. Qing Luo, be careful behind you. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed. Almost subconsciously, her footsteps moved. But the hand which was locked on her wrist was holding her down firmly. Not only that, Xiaoba even grabbed her wrist, pulling her towards his direction. Yiqing Luo's footwork which she was about to display was interrupted, and she staggered forward. Bam! A palm landed squarely on her back. Yiqing Luo felt an intense pain, as though her 4 limbs were about to be torn apart. Her internal organs were twisting together in pain. She heard Yan Xiaoyi and the others' anxious cries. But her consciousness was a little blurry. She took a deep breath and bit her lower lip. The sweet taste of blood started to spread in her mouth. The stinging pain also caused her eyes to gradually clear up a little. She clearly saw, behind her, that unrecognizable, extremely comical and terrifying face, as well as that pair of vicious murderous eyes. It was Lang Yan. Xiaoba had been restraining her. It was to create a chance for Lang Yan to kill her. Yiqing Luo's breathing froze. The excruciating pain in his 5 viscera and 6 bowels attacked him again. She frowned in pain. Lang Yan's cold voice resounded in her ears. What? You can't bear to part with it just like that. This girl is too abnormal. I don't have the confidence to control her. Xiaoba lowered his head as he stared at his hand which was filled with blood because he had grabbed hold of Yiqing Luo. This lass's regenerative ability is just too strong. If I don't kill her, leaving her alive would be trouble. Killing intent surged in Lang Yan's eyes. Then, I'll kill her. Don't feel bad. He was asking a question. But while he was speaking, he had already raised his palm once again, pressing it down towards the top of Yiqing Luo's skull. This palm strike was ferocious and carried boundless killing intent. His face was disfigured by a little girl from the lower realm. This made Lang Yan, who had always claimed to be the king with the strongest destructive power, lose all face. The only way to appease him was, kill Yiqing Luo, use Yiqing Luo's blood to eliminate his anger. Yiqing Luo could obviously feel that evil aura which was filled with killing intent, charging towards her with irresistible force. Little by little, her slightly misty and charming eyes became cold and fierce. At this moment, his extremely pale face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. Chapter 30:13. Yiqing Luo's eyes suddenly turned cold. Xia Ba's right hand, which was held tightly by Xia Ba, suddenly clenched into a fist. The demonic and crazy red light cut through the air with a whoosh and instantly wrapped around her right arm. The scorching heat burned again. Originally they thought that Yiqing Luo, who had suffered from Lang Yan's palm, absolutely would not have any energy left to counterattack. Towards Yiqing Luo, Xia Ba wasn't as vigilant as before. As the burning sensation surged, Li Tianlan's eyes widened. He instinctively loosened his grip. When he came back to his senses, he wanted to tighten his grip again. However, it was also at this moment that he let go. This gave the azure dew bracelet a chance to vent. Swish swish swish, bang. Explosions could be heard in the air. The profound energy that had been suppressed in his body due to Xia Ba's tight grip on the azure dew bracelet's vein patterns, at this moment, money was flowing out like it was free. It poured out in torrents. Endless demonic red light washed away the evil aura that enveloped the Holy Maiden Institute. Ah! Xia Ba didn't even have time to react before he felt a dull pain in his chest. His entire body was pushed back a dozen steps by the crazily surging power. In the end, it smashed heavily into the ruins. However, this was not the end. Xia Ba clutched his chest and vomited blood. His face was filled with shock as he stared in Yiqing Luo's direction. He raised his head. A fist filled with killing intent smashed down. Oh! Xia Ba let out a miserable shriek. The surrounding ruins collapsed. His dark force surged and his strength surged like a whirlwind. With Yiqing Luo's feet as the epicenter, the surroundings exploded into a huge deep pit. Xia Ba lay limply in the huge pit, his mouth full of blood. His breathing was so weak that it seemed like it would stop at any moment. Yiqing Luo's sudden outburst made Lang Yan's pupils constrict. While Yiqing Luo was dealing with Xia Ba, he quickly retreated. However, in the next instant, the girl standing in the deep pit raised the corner of her lips into a bloodthirsty and treacherous smile. Don't be anxious, now, it's your turn. As the bewitching and ruthless voice came to an end, Lang Yan's heart skipped a beat. He opened his eyes wide vigilantly, sensing Yiqing Luo's direction. However, in the next moment, the young girl was already like an arrow that had left the bow, attacking him head-on. Just as Lang Yan was about to dodge, the young girl's figure immediately disappeared before his eyes. Instead, it was replaced by a majestic, spiraling, gigantic fire dragon. The fire dragon bared its fangs and brandished its claws, as if it wanted to swallow him whole. Insignificant skill. Lang Yan's face darkened. He coldly snorted and quickly responded. However, his cold snort didn't even have time to finish. The fire dragon broke through his counterattack and bit down on his face. Bang! Lang Yan's body was smashed into the ground by the force of the fire dragon. Lang Yan groaned in pain, feeling like he was being burned by a raging fire. At the same time, the flying fire dragon suddenly dissipated. The slender and petite figure slowly appeared. Her face was as cold as ice and her eyes were devoid of any emotion. She stared fixedly at Lang Yan and Xia Ba, who were lying in two deep pits, howling in pain but unable to resist. Qing Luo. You're too incredible. Sister, you're the person that Kitty admires the most. Qing Luo. Yan Xiaoyi and the others were so shocked by this scene that they couldn't close their mouths. On seeing those two mysterious and powerful people who had lost their battle power, they immediately went forward with a face full of excitement and agitation. But, at the next moment. Chapter 30:14. Qing Luo. The few of them's joyous expression froze on their faces. The few of them immediately rushed forward, trying to catch Qing Luo. But a figure with an even faster speed overtook them. Yan Xiaoyi's footsteps halted as she frowned at that person's back, young sect master Gu. This person was Gu Jingyu, who had regained his energy and rushed over in a hurry. Gu Jingyu had just rushed over when he saw Qing Luo's falling figure. His mind went blank immediately. His body had instinctively rushed towards Qing Luo's direction. But Gu Jingyu had yet to get near. Suddenly, a cold breeze brushed past his face. The air, which was filled with blood, was inexplicably tainted with a layer of sandalwood scent. Following that, he saw a tall figure, bringing that falling young lady into his arms. The two of them slowly landed on the ground. Gu Jingyu's footsteps instantly froze on the spot. His body also stiffened. He looked at the scene in front of him in a daze, as his eyes kept on contracting and expanding. And behind him, the few of them who were chasing up, when they saw that person clearly. All of their faces revealed an ecstatic expression. Overlord! Overlord! You're back. That tall figure, dressed in a flowing purple robe, was a noble and elegant man. Just standing there. He gave off a chilling, overbearing aura, powerful to the extreme. Other than Dmo Xian, who else could it be? He. Nirvana Realm's legend. The overlord who made everyone tremble in fear. He was finally back. Moreover, look at the overlord's action of catching Qing Luo. The overlord's gaze towards Qing Luo. That was obvious. Obviously the Gu had been cured successfully. The few of them were so agitated that their eyes were brimming with tears. The overlord had rushed over in time. Qing Luo would absolutely be fine. Qing Luo. Beside him, Gu Jingyu opened his mouth hoarsely, as he stared unwillingly at the young lady in the man's arms, as he clenched his fists tightly. If he was a little faster. A little faster. The one who was hugging Qing Luo in his arms was him. Dmo Xian heard his voice, as he frowned slightly. He raised his eyes, as his frosty peach blossom eyes, as he shot a cold glance at Gu Jingyu. That gaze was gloomy and cold. It was just a glance. Gu Jingyu's face instantly turned pale. He was so frightened that he took a few steps back. Xian. Suddenly, the voice of the person in his arms sounded like a gossamer. Dmo Xian swiftly lowered his eyes and looked at the young lady in his arms. The girl's long eyelashes trembled slightly. In the haze, she seemed to see a familiar face. The familiar scent of sandalwood filled his nostrils. The exhaustion in her body unknowingly loosened. She wanted to laugh. She smiled at him, who she had been thinking about day and night. She tried to lift her hand. She wanted to touch the face that she missed so much. However, she didn't even have the strength to lift the corners of her mouth. He couldn't even lift his hand. At the same time, his body and mind relaxed. Her vision darkened, and she fell into a deep sleep. Little Luo, a hoarse voice spilled out from Dmo Xian's thin lips. His arms tightened around the girl in his embrace. The girl's delicate body was as light as a feather. His hands were trembling. His heart seemed to be soaked in ice frost. Especially, the young lady's pale complexion pierced his eyes. His gloomy peach blossom eyes were surging with gloomy light, as it fluctuated violently. Secluded palace. Kill without mercy. The icy cold words were spat out from Dmo Xian's mouth. Chapter 30:15. How could he possibly? In a corner not far from the Sacred Maiden Institute, the lady who was curled up on the back of the huge magical beast seemed to have lost all her energy as she laid on the magical beast's back. The lady stared in shock at the Sacred Maiden Institute, at that tall figure. Her heart was filled with endless fear. I will protect you. The black-robed man behind her squatted down and took the lady into his arms as he comforted her gently. Don't be afraid, I won't let anything happen to you. These two people were Wolf Saint Magic and Fox Saint Magic. They had been hiding in the dark. They were thinking of waiting for the helpers from the Hell Palace to successfully exterminate the Sacred Maiden Institute. Then they would appear and snatch the credit. But they had not expected this at all. Yiqing Luo was actually so tenacious. She was able to break through her limits time and time again, surpassing herself. And just based on her own strength, she completely oppressed the two experts from the Hell Palace. One must know. When the Palace Lord mentioned the Hell Palace, his tone was filled with the determination to win. They had heard of the Hell Palace's prestige. But these two people in the Hell Palace, whose abilities even the Palace Lord thought highly of, were completely oppressed by Yiqing Luo. Now, Dmo Xian had appeared safe and sound. From Dmo Xian's tone earlier, they could totally hear it. How deep was Dmo Xian's accumulated anger right now? Didn't Fourth Elder Miao said. He was poisoned by the Miao tribe's ancestors' venom, and it's a double venom of centrifugal venom and love venom. Wolf Saint Magic hugged the trembling person as he comforted her gently. Just based on that newly appointed Miao Yi, it's absolutely impossible to cure the venom in Dmo Xian's body. There's a possibility that Dmo Xian sensed that Yiqing Luo was in danger and forced himself to come over to save Yiqing Luo. As though to convince Fox Saint Magic, or to convince himself, Wolf Saint Magic nodded his head vigorously. Dmo Xian is absolutely putting on an act now. His large palm rubbed Fox Saint Magic's head. I'll let the blood sacrifice bring you away. Fox Saint Magic grabbed the magical beast beneath him, which was the blood sacrifice's fur. Then you, what about you? I said before, I will protect you. Wolf Saint Magic smiled gently at her, totally different from his usual gloomy temperament. The Fox Saint Law's pupils constricted, and he opened his mouth, wanting to say something urgently. However, the Wolf Saint Law's gaze forced him to swallow his words. Wolf Xingfa leaped and quickly moved to the other side. At the same time, Blood Sacrifice's dinosaur-like giant body flew away. It was extremely agile as it sped off in another direction. You injured the future mistress of our imperial palace. Still want to run? Suddenly, a tender voice resounded from the corner. A slender figure quickly rushed in the direction of the blood sacrifice. Following that, countless young men and women dressed in black and white robes surrounded them from all directions, each of them brimming with a murderous aura. As far as the eye could see, there were at least 1,000 people. The moment this group of people quickly surrounded him, Lang Xingfa's expression changed drastically. He looked in the direction of the Fox Saint technique, and with a move of his feet, he was about to give chase. However, he was intercepted by 5 youths. And on the other side, being carried by Xuesi, the Fox Saint technique that was moving swiftly on the Miao tribe's small path, was also stopped by a powerful and vigorous attack. Xuesi was forced to stop. Chapter 30:16. Fox Sacred Law's face was as pale as paper. Bit by bit, she shifted her vision towards the group of people who were obstructing her. Black and white-colored long robes. Their ages were all on the younger side, probably the oldest was not older than 24 or 25. But every single one of them exuded a unique aura which made one's hair stand on end. Although Fox's sacred law had just revived not too long ago. But looking at these people's dressing and characteristics. In his mind, there were two words that immediately appeared: Imperial Palace. Yes, Imperial Palace. These people. They were all Imperial Palace's disciples. Only the Emperor Palace could nurture such a terrifying disciple. Only the Imperial Palace could have such a powerful aura. The #1 palace in the world was definitely not an undeserved reputation. The Overlord said, everyone from Abysmal Palace are to be killed without mercy. A cold and elegant voice was heard from the front. Fox's sacred law immediately raised her eyes and looked over. That was a tall lady dressed in a black and white-colored long robe. The lady's features were exquisite and extremely beautiful. Her expression was icy cold and filled with majesty. But between her brows, there was a glint of melancholy which couldn't be dispelled. Her hands were placed behind her back, as she stood in front of the blood sacrifice with an outstanding temperament. Apparently, she was the leader of these Imperial Palace's disciples. And at this moment, the commotion here had already attracted Yan Xiaoyi and the others' attention. The Imperial Palace's disciples coming out in full force was a huge surprise to the few of them. Following the direction of the Imperial Palace's disciples' encirclement, Yan Xiaoyi bore the brunt of it and followed up. She had the guts to collude with the Miao tribe, bringing Abysmal Palace's people to hurt her Qing Luo to such a state when the Overlord wasn't around. Not a single one of those Abysmal Palace's people could escape. Especially Fox's sacred law, who was the initiator. Not to mention escaping. When Yan Xiaoyi and the others chased up, their vision fell onto that beautiful lady. Yan Xiaoyi's eyes lit up slightly. Beiyuan, it's you. Tang Beiyuan's beautiful eyes lifted up slightly, and on seeing Yan Xiaoyi and the others, the icy cold expression on her face softened a little. I'm sorry, I was too slow when I went to mobilize the Imperial Palace's disciples, which caused Mistress to suffer such a serious injury. I'm sorry for making all of you worried. It's good that you're here. It's good that you're here. Peach's eyes sparkled as she stared at Tang Beiyuan. She seemed to be able to glean some gossip and secrets about the Imperial Palace from Tang Beiyuan. Yan Xiaoyi rolled her eyes and tugged at Peach. Be more reserved. Dmo Xian's appearance coupled with the timely arrival of the Imperial Palace's disciples. Everyone's tensed emotions finally relaxed. Dmo Xian seemed to have a kind of magical power. A way for people to see him, they couldn't help but believe that he would be able to protect everyone's magic power. Cough, cough, Xia Ba and Lang Yan felt as if their bodies had been disassembled and then put back together again. Just the slightest movement would cause them a heart-wrenching pain. They struggled to stand up from the huge pit. Blood rolled down from their bodies. Their bodies swayed unsteadily. Damn it, that scoundrel, actually managed to injure us. Lang Yan clenched his teeth in dissatisfaction. He could not believe that he, who was known as the King of Destruction, was beaten to such a state by a little girl who had not even grown her hair yet. If he returned to the underworld palace like this, how could he have the face to continue living? Bam! Before Lang Yan could finish his cursing, suddenly, a whirlwind swept past. It directly landed a palm on his face. This palm did not contain any profound energy, but it was full of strength. Chapter 30:17. Lang Yan glared angrily at the direction where the slap came from. The man in the purple robe looked at him coldly. That pair of terrifying peach blossom eyes were surging with a treacherous storm. Full of anger. It was actually forcefully stopped by this majestic coldness. Since you can't speak, you can also give up this mouth. The voice was as cold as ice, as if wrapped in frost. Ling Yan's heart trembled, the hand covering his face also froze. The next moment, Ling Yan only felt a bone-chilling wind blowing against his face, not giving him time to react. His feet left the ground. His feet kept flopping, struggling. An unshakable profound energy wrapped around his neck. Ugh! The feeling of suffocation made Ling Yan's strength gradually dissipate. His consciousness was fading. The feeling of pain left him no room to resist. Just when Ling Yan thought that he was going to suffocate to death, suddenly, the force that was wrapped around his neck rushed into his mouth. Ah! A painful scream sounded. Then, there was only the sound of heavy breathing. The onlookers only felt their scalps go numb, and silently looked away. It was a miserable scream. It should be Ling Yan's last voice in this world. Ling Yan's mouth was full of blood, a pair of eyes, wide open. His tongue was cut to pieces by that profound energy. What kind of powerful force was this? So powerful that, from the beginning to the end, until now, he had not seen the man in purple in front of him make a move. And he was injured to the point that he had no power to fight back. You are, Xia Ba, who had struggled to climb up. After seeing the man in front of him, his face changed dramatically. His malicious eyes suddenly stared at Fox Saint Law and Wolf Saint Law, who had been forced by Tang Beiyuan and the others to retreat behind him. His eyes, full of haze, the person in the sacred maiden courtyard that made you so afraid, is the Overlord. You have been deceiving me from the beginning. Fox Saint Law's face was pale, her eyes quickly swept over Dmo Xian, and immediately shook her head in shock. However, no matter how much Fox Saint Law denied, her first reaction had already explained everything. His guess was right. From the very beginning, the target of Anyo Palace was the overlord of the Saintess Yard. The Tenebrous Palace wanted to use the power of the Underworld Palace to kill Lord Dizun. If he succeeded in killing Dizun, the goal of the Palace of Darkness would be achieved. If they failed to kill the Overlord, just like now, the Underworld Palace was the target of His Majesty's vengeance. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness could push everything to the Hell Palace. Evil's domineering face, which was full of scars, twisted into a bowl. Dark Palace. I wholeheartedly wanted to return your favor and help you do things, but you actually schemed against me like this. The Underworld Palace will never let you off. He roared in exasperation. It affected the wounds on his body, causing waves of tearing pain. He couldn't stop coughing at all. If he had known from the start, the Palace of Gloomy Shadows wanted to destroy the Saintess Yard and let the entire Miao tribe fall into the void space. They also wanted to kill the Overlord. They would never get involved in this mess. Although the Underworld Palace was a concentration camp for a bunch of lunatics who were not afraid of death. But it didn't mean that they were a bunch of brainless lunatics. They were indeed not afraid of death, but they were afraid of the Overlord. Chapter 30:18. He didn't even care about his own injuries as he forced his bleeding body to move towards Dmo Xian's direction. Overlord, everything. Everything is a conspiracy by the Palace of Darkness. Hell Palace didn't know about it beforehand. Not knowing if it was because of Dmo Xian's intimidating aura. Or was it because the wounds on his body had been pulled apart by his movements? Xia Ba's voice kept trembling. Overlord, no, it's me, I'm willing. I'm willing to lead the Hell Palace to destroy the Palace of Darkness. I hope the Overlord won't vent your anger on the Hell Palace. At this moment, Xia Ba's face was covered with blood and his extremely ferocious face was full of flattery. He tried his best to appease Dmo Xian so that he wouldn't vent his anger on the Hell Palace. The reason why the Hell Palace was called the Hell of the Earth Realm was that it made people tremble in fear. They would try their best not to provoke them. Not only because they were a bunch of fearless lunatics, but also because they were united. Because they were not recognized by the world. Because they were all abandoned by the world. Therefore, when they reorganized into a big family, they had no choice but to cooperate. They especially cherished it. For evil arts, for becoming stronger. They could use any means. However, all of this was because they wanted to protect their own little home. So, from the beginning, Xia Ba and Leng Yan didn't seem to respect each other in words. But they never turned their backs on each other. They never had the thought of abandoning each other and running away. Because of this, for the Hell Palace, Xia Ba was willing to lower his noble head. He lowered his head, he showed his weakness. But it didn't ease Dmo Xian's expression. Dmo Xian's eyes were cold, and there was no emotion on his peerless face. He stared at Xia Ba quietly. His deep and treacherous peach blossom eyes exuded an extremely dangerous aura. He just stood there, not saying a word. But it made people feel that he was like a devil from the hell. The air was frozen and the atmosphere was cold. Xia Ba's forehead was covered with cold sweat. His heart thumped anxiously, and his hands were about to pierce through his flesh. Until Xia Ba's face was pale and he wanted to continue pleading. The man's cold and emotionless voice slowly rang out, "I will personally destroy the Palace of Darkness." His voice was cold and thin, and his eyes were ice-cold. Xia Ba's eyes widened as his heart skipped a beat and his body stiffened on the spot. The Overlord is not going to accept his offer, his overtures. But Dmo Xian's indifferent voice sounded again. He only spat out 2 words when he said that. It made Xia Ba's heart rise to his throat. Dmo Xian narrowed his shimmering peach blossom eyes and a dangerous aura started to spread out from his surroundings. His coquettish thin lips curled into a dangerous arc as he said word by word, "I won't take your lives." The words seemed to have given Xia Ba and Leng Yan great hope. Both of them raised their heads in delight as they looked at Dmo Xian in shock. At this moment, they no longer looked as arrogant as before. However, their happiness had not yet spread out in their hearts. Dmo Xian's next sentence made the expressions on both of their faces stiffen on their faces. Chapter 30:19. Dmo Xian's thin lips curled into a sneer. The person in his arms. He pampered her, doted on her, couldn't bear for her to be hurt or wronged. 2 scums from the Hell Palace dared to hurt his little Luo, to such an extent. Still thinking he would let them off. Still thinking of using death to escape punishment. It wasn't just these 2 scums. The Hell Palace and the Palace of Darkness. All had to pay the price for what they had done today. Dmo Xian's lips curled up even more. His almond-shaped eyes were glistening and surging violently. Boom boom boom. Dmo Xian unleashed his profound energy from his entire body, shocking the surrounding air, as it kept on exploding with explosive sounds. Xia Ba's body was still swaying. It was suddenly blasted apart by this explosion. So shocked that he knelt on the ground. His knees landed heavily on the rubble that was scattered all over the ground. The sharp stones pierced into his knees. Xia Ba's face turned pale, struggling to get up. However, before he could move, an overwhelming pressure pressed down on his back. Like 1,000 pounds pressing down on him. He couldn't even move. Those disciples of the Palace of Darkness who were still alive listened to the Wolf Saint Law's command. Under this powerful force, one by one, they exploded and died. The exploded minced meat and blood gradually stained the ground. The shocking thing was, in this space, it wasn't just the disciples of the Palace of Darkness who were surrounded. There were also the Imperial Palace disciples and other Miao tribesmen. But this violent surge of profound energy bypassed the Imperial Palace disciples and the Miao tribesmen. All of it hit the disciples of the Palace of Darkness. "Ah, ah, ah. Save us. Assistant Palace Master, save us. We don't want to die. Overlord, spare us. Spare us." Countless cries for help resounded through the sky. But no matter how they cried for help, how they wailed, it couldn't appease Dmo Xian's anger. Blood stained the ground. The surrounding was destroyed, there was almost no place to stand. Facing this scene, Dmo Xian's expression didn't change at all. Only when he looked down at the unconscious girl in his arms, his cold and stiff face had a trace of gentleness. He raised his hand. His slender fingers gently caressed Yiqing Luo's face. This was just the interest. Now, his little Luo heir was more important. Dmo Xian's brows turned even gentler. He held Yiqing Luo's little hand in one hand as he placed it by his lips and gave it a light kiss. Gazing at Yiqing Luo's gaze, it was so gentle that water could be pinched out. Kill everyone from the Dark Nether Palace. However, when his lips left the back of Yiqing Luo's hand, a clear and melodious voice followed. He lowered his voice as if he was worried that he would wake up the person in his arms. His face was also gentle. But the words that came out of his mouth were bone-chilling. Dmo Xian's vision shot towards a certain direction. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept over. Descending from the sky, a snow-white nine-tailed fox with 9 tails dancing wildly in the wind stood steadily in front of Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian's eyes lit up. Dmo Xian gently hugged Yiqing Luo as he slowly stepped onto the 9-tailed fox. It was accompanied by his icy cold voice. Bring the 2 people from Hell Palace back to the Imperial Palace's dungeon, use profound ice shackles to lock them up. Standing on Little Nine's back, Dmo Xian sat down, letting the young lady lean into his arms in a comfortable position. Chapter 30-20. When Xia Ba and Leng Yan heard that, they instantly turned pale with fright. Leng Yan gave out a woo-woo sound as he panted heavily. His face was totally unrecognizable, only that pair of eyes were opened wide, filled with a vicious haze. Xia Ba clenched his teeth tightly as he clenched his fists, trying his best to suppress the anger in his heart. There were legends regarding Dmo Xian. Even for them, this bunch of lunatics who only knew how to cultivate evil arts and only knew how to hunt strange prey, they had all heard of it. Even if they were at their peak, they might not be able to defeat Dmo Xian if they joined hands. Not to mention the fact that they were badly injured after being tortured by Yiqing Luo. They totally had no way to resist. Overlord. Xia Ba's eyes turned red as he refused to give up and tried to negotiate with Dmo Xian. However, Dmo Xian, whose heart was filled with Yiqing Luo's injuries, totally had no mood to bother about them. Just as Xia Ba was about to charge forward unwillingly, a stench filled with a fishy smell blew across his face, directly onto Xia Ba's face. Following that, he saw 9 white tails sweeping past his eyes. Xia Ba's expression instantly turned as black as charcoal. Earlier, he was defeated by 9-tailed fox's fart. His eyes were filled with viciousness as he clenched his teeth so hard that it made a grinding sound. Little Nine arrogantly flicked his tail as he turned into a white shadow, disappearing into the horizon. Yiqing Luo was in a daze, and from time to time, she could feel a raging fire burning within her body. Just as he was struggling to expel the burning sensation, he felt a chill run down his spine. But a warm big palm gently held her little hand. And a gentle voice, whispering into her ear. She couldn't hear clearly what that voice was saying. But her heart inexplicably felt at peace. Even that burning feeling in her body, gradually extinguished in her heart. And in a blur, she felt someone using a warm, soft towel, brushing against her skin bit by bit. Vaguely, she also smelled an extremely familiar and pleasant scent. It made her greedily want to smell it for a while more. She moaned comfortably and once again fell into a deep slumber. The surroundings were quiet and silent. Yiqing Luo's curly long eyelashes trembled slightly. Suddenly, she felt that there was something in her arms that was moving and moving. Then, she felt a furry thing hugging her neck. "Master, Master, you're finally awake." The sweet and crisp voice of a child rang in his ears. Yiqing Luo was still in a daze, her long eyelashes blinked once again. What came into view was an extremely cute cat face. Yiqing Luo's brain was sluggish for a moment before she spat out two words, "Chi-Chi." Chi-Chi's little head immediately rubbed against Yiqing Luo's face. "Our Wu-Wu master has been unconscious for 3 days and 3 nights. Chi-Chi is so worried about master, so worried." Chi-Chi's little pink tongue kept licking Yiqing Luo's face. 3 days and 3 nights. No wonder she felt weak all over, and even her mind was a little slow. Are they all right? Yiqing Luo had just opened her mouth when she felt her voice was unbearably hoarse and her lips were extremely dry. She frowned and stopped talking. Chi-Chi's little body suddenly jumped from the side of the bed onto the table. Its slender white tail rolled up the quilt on the table and leapt back again. Chapter 30-21. Settled. Yiqing Luo recalled the warm embrace before she fell into a coma. Also, when she was unconscious, that extremely gentle touch, that gentle whisper, and that aura that made her feel at ease. Her pupils dilated slightly. "Chi-Chi, Xian He, the poison in his body, has it been cured?" "It's cured." Chi-Chi shook her head and nodded vigorously. Old man Gue Wu said that Overlord Master not only cured the poison in his body, but in the process of curing it, he went through a tribulation. He broke through the barrier of advancement. Which meant to say, Dmo Xian had advanced. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up slightly as her lips couldn't help but curled upwards. Xian's profound grade was already unfathomable and mysterious to the extreme. Breaking through and advancing was an extremely difficult thing. Now he was able to advance. It was also a blessing in disguise. Yiqing Luo's heart had just calmed down when she thought of something as the smile on her lips faded, then "Ee is fine, everyone is fine." Chi-Chi licked Yiqing Luo's face. "Master, lie down properly and don't talk anymore." Chi-Chi will tell Master slowly. Under Chi-Chi's insistent gaze, Yiqing Luo slowly lay back on the bed. Chi-Chi nestled in her arms and told Yiqing Luo about what happened after Yiqing Luo had fainted. From Chi-Chi's mouth, Yiqing Luo knew that she was now in the Imperial Palace. This was Dmo Xian's room. And the 2 people from the Hell Palace were imprisoned in the most secret dungeon in the Imperial Palace. Over at the Seclusion Palace, those disciples who went to the Miao tribe had all lost their lives. Only one person from the Seclusion Palace managed to escape alive. That person was the Fox Saint technique. The reason why the Fox Saint technique was able to escape was because the Wolf Saint technique had exchanged his life for hers. When Yiqing Luo heard her man's boyfriend power to the max, Yiqing Luo's eyes couldn't help but start to bubble with pink bubbles. No wonder he was her Xian. He was so handsome that it made one suffocated. As for that Fox Saint technique, escaping, to her, was the biggest torture. The Wolf Saint technique died to save her. In the future, even if she was still alive, she would always remember the Wolf Saint technique and be filled with endless guilt towards it. Living like this was the most painful. So many disciples from the Palace of Darkness have died, over at the Palace of Darkness. Is there any movement? Yiqing Luo looked at Chi-Chi and asked. Chi-Chi shook its head. Master, you don't know. When you fainted in Overlord Master's arms, Overlord Master was so terrifying. He looked like a demon that had just walked out of hell. If it wasn't for the fact that I was worried about you, Overlord, you would have killed those disciples of Dark Palace with your own hands. Speaking of the scene at that time, Chi-Chi's tiger eyes opened wide. Dizun Master is really angry. The Palace of Gloomy Shadows has suffered such a great loss. How would they dare to cause trouble again? Then, what about the Underworld Palace? Yiqing Luo asked again. Chi-Chi replied, Dizun Master said that after Master's body recovers, we will go to the Underworld Palace together to avenge you. When Yiqing Luo heard that, her brows overflowed with a faint smile. This man, he was truly meticulous. He also knew that she really wanted to take revenge with her own hands. So she specially spared Lang Yan and Xia Ba's lives, waiting for her body to completely recover to its original state. The man and the beast were talking. Yiqing Luo's ears twitched. She heard light footsteps approaching from outside the door. Chapter 30-22. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips and shot a glance at Chi-Chi before closing her eyes. Chi-Chi blinked its tiger eyes and closed its eyes, nestling in Yiqing Luo's arms. The man and the beast breathed calmly. The footsteps stopped at the door. There was a soft sound of the door opening. Yiqing Luo could hear that the room door was opened by a tiny gap. A few pairs of eyes glanced at her. Based on his intuition, Yiqing Luo expressed that these gazes weren't friendly at all. She sensed it for a bit. He could roughly confirm that there were 5 women standing outside. She's still asleep. A woman lowered her voice and slowly retreated. The door closed again. After confirming that Yiqing Luo had fallen asleep, those few ladies spoke without any reservations. This is the woman Dizun brought back. He doesn't look as stunning as Hallmaster Tang described him to be. Even if she isn't a celestial being, Dizun likes her anyway. If Dizun likes her, even if she's ugly, Hallmaster Tang will praise her to the skies. I really don't know what the Overlord sees in her. If it wasn't for her, our Imperial Palace wouldn't be in such a passive position. We even dare to step on the newly established Palace of Darkness. I know, right? The women's tone was filled with resentment and disdain towards Yiqing Luo. Only knowing how to rely on our Overlord to flaunt his prowess. Once the Overlord isn't around, he caused himself to almost lose his life. Our Imperial Palace has kept these pills for so many years. Even His Majesty is reluctant to consume them, but all of them went into her mouth as if they cost nothing. The more I think about it, the more I feel indignant. Who does she think she is? You can't even be compared to Miss Feng, but you still have the cheek to cling to the Overlord. After those women confirmed that Yiqing Luo had fallen asleep, they vented out all the accumulated grievances in their hearts without any restraints. Initially, when Yiqing Luo heard those sarcastic remarks, she was still bewildered. How could there be such a terrifying retarded existence in the Imperial Palace? When he heard one of the names, she understood everything. Miss Feng. Someone with the surname Feng in the Imperial Palace, and someone who could be called Miss. Other than Feng Ling, she couldn't think of anyone else. Windling grew up in the Imperial Palace. With wind chimes, that idiot. It made sense that there were a few idiots in the Imperial Palace. As it turned out, these people were Wind Chime's followers. Now he had run over here to watch this woman who was personally carried back by Dmo Xian. Did he just want to avenge Wind Chimes? I want to prove it. She was not as good as Feng Ling. Yiqing Luo opened her eyes and a chilly intent filled her eyes. Her weak fingers were just about to lift up. It was easily pressed down by Chi-Chi's tail. In his mind, Chi-Chi's voice resounded. Master, you've just woken up. You can't use your dark force. Chi-Chi will go and teach those baddies who are gossiping outside a lesson. After saying that, Chi-Chi was about to let go of Yi-Ching Luo and rush out of the door. But suddenly they heard an angry voice. What are you all doing at Ching Luo's entrance? Which hall are you maids from? How dare you be so rude? The few women who were still talking with confidence and composure were immediately frightened to the point of crying out in alarm. Is the quality of the imperial palace's maidservants so low? You even dare to talk about your own master? That voice was filled with anger. Chapter 30-23. After the female attendant finished her sentence, she sized up the man in front of her. Following that, she covered her mouth as her gaze moved between the direction of the man and the tightly shut door. Young sect master Gu, you're merely a guest of the imperial palace, you have no right to shout and wrangle in front of us. As the female attendant was saying that, her tone turned strange. Speaking of this, young sect master Gu has been running over here for the past few days. Don't tell me that. The woman inside is the woman whom the overlord had personally brought back. Gu Jingyu's expression sunk as his gentle brows were filled with anger. Don't you dare spout nonsense. There's nothing between this young master and Ching Luo. If you still know that Ching Luo is the woman whom the overlord had personally brought back, and is your future mistress, then you shouldn't be spouting nonsense behind my back. The overlord had never acknowledged her identity, so she's only the overlord's bed-warming maid. That female attendant's tone was filled with disdain. One person took the lead. The other few female attendants didn't have any fear in them. That's right. What future mistress, that's all in your dreams. We're spouting nonsense. You kept coming over to take a peek at that woman, do you think we don't know? How can this be called as being innocent? The few female attendants totally didn't have any misgivings because of Gu Jingyu's identity. In their hearts, the imperial palace was this world's biggest power. What four great sects, what young sect master. They were all fearless. Gu Jingyu was so infuriated by their shameless words that his brows creased tightly as he flew into a rage. You bunch of young lasses who have no respect for your master. Today this young sect master shall help your overlord to teach you how to treat your guests properly. Gu Jingyu's brows sunk as a palm wind landed directly on the female attendant's face. Cough. Just at this moment, suddenly a soft cough was heard from the tightly shut room. Gu Jingyu's palm wind instantly froze in midair. Following that, his figure flashed as he speedily dashed to the front of the room door. He raised his hand and was about to push the door open. But following that, he seemed to have thought of something as his hand awkwardly froze in midair as he slowly retracted it. He clenched his fists and stared at Dollar's door. It was as if there was a whirlpool inside him. After some time, he coughed lightly. Ching Luo, how do you feel? Yi-Ching Luo squinted her eyes slightly as she looked outside the door, at the reflection of the figure as her lips curled up slightly and her voice was slightly hoarse. I'm fine, but your body should be fine, right? In the Miao tribe, Gu Jingyu blocked Xia Ba's attack for her. At that time, he had also suffered very serious injuries. Outside the house, after hearing Yi-Ching Luo's concerned words, his lips immediately revealed a gentle smile. I'm fine. Yi-Ching Luo could tell that his voice had softened and could almost guess Gu Jingyu's current expression. For a moment, she didn't know how to respond towards Gu Jingyu's feelings. She could sense it somehow. However, she had no way to determine the sincerity behind these feelings. However, no matter how Gu Jingyu felt about her lover would only be Dmo Xian. There was no doubt about this. Towards Gu Jingyu, she could only say her apologies. Qing Luo, can I come in? Not hearing any sound from inside the house, Gu Jingyu immediately opened his mouth to ask worriedly. Qing Luo's eyes drooped as she took a look at herself. She was only wearing a white inner garment. Chapter 30-24. Qing Luo was just about to reject him. Gu Jingyu's hand suddenly placed on the door as he clenched his fists tightly, revealing a bellyful of repression. Qing Luo. Follow me, leave this place with me. His voice was laborious as he squeezed out every single word. Follow me to Wind Valley sect. I will let everyone know that you are the future sect mistress. I will not let Wind Valley sect, or anyone in South Water Continent, have the chance to bully you. Gu Jingyu seemed to have suppressed it for a long time, and at this moment, he finally couldn't hold it in any longer and exploded out. The words that were buried in his heart finally came out. Gu Jingyu. Qing Luo's expression sunk when she heard Gu Jingyu's words. Gu Jingyu's fist banged heavily on the wall beside the door. Qing Luo, the Overlord has not acknowledged your identity at all. Even these few female attendants dare to humiliate you. What's the point of you staying in the Imperial Palace? He clenched his teeth tightly as his eyes were filled with deep anger. If it's me, I will absolutely not bear to let you suffer such grievances. Gu Jingyu. Qing Luo's brows creased tightly as she propped herself up, trying to get up from the bed. Under such a situation, she could only explain it clearly to Gu Jingyu personally. From the start to the end, her rejection towards Gu Jingyu was already very obvious. But he still insisted on being so persistent. If Gu Jingyu was agitated and rushed into her room, the consequences were unimaginable. But Qing Luo was after all someone who had slept for 3 days and 3 nights. Even with the medicinal pills to replenish her energy, her entire body was still weak and she had no way to get up. Chi used her head to push against her as she whispered, Master, you can't move around recklessly now. If Master gets injured again, Chi will be spanked by the Overlord Master. Qing Luo's breathing was slightly messed up. Just as she was about to say something, those female attendants who were watching the show outside immediately covered their mouths as they laughed. I say there's something wrong with the both of you. As expected, you're indeed doing it behind the Overlord's back. TSK. Listen to young sect Master Gu's infatuated words. Lady Yi is really good at seduction. Not only has our Lord Dizun been charmed, but even young sect Master Gu is infatuated with her. Actually, I think that Lady Yi and young Master Gu are a match made in heaven. How could a foxy woman like Lady Yi be worthy of the high and mighty Overlord? The faces of the maids were filled with bitter jealousy. The more he spoke, the more unpleasant his words became. Gu Jingyu's face alternated between green and white as he listened. He clenched his fists, and his eyes were no longer as warm as before. Instead, they were filled with suppressed distress. If His Majesty knew how to cherish him, I wouldn't have said such words. He suddenly raised his head and stared at the tightly shut door in front of him. A trace of determination suddenly flashed in his eyes. Qing Luo, even if you blame me, I must bring you out of here today. Leave this place that doesn't belong to you. As he spoke, Gu Jingyu suddenly raised his hand and punched the door. The sound of wood breaking rang out. When Qing Luo heard this voice, her heart instantly panicked. She immediately raised her hand, wanting to cover herself with the bedding. But her weak body's speed naturally couldn't match up to Gu Jingyu's speed. A figure dashed towards her at lightning speed. Swoosh, just as Gu Jinyu's figure was about to appear in the bedroom. Chapter 30-25. Ah! Gu Jinyu let out a blood-curdling scream as he covered his face suddenly. Because of the splinters, there was a vast expanse of white dust in front of him. Gu Jingyu had no time to see clearly everything in front of him. Yiqing Luo's weak body stiffened slightly. His heart, which had been hanging in suspense, also relaxed. Only, Yiqing Luo had yet to catch her breath. The next moment, a warm and strong arm hugged her tightly in his embrace. Following that, a red robe wrapped around her slender body tightly. Between her breath, the familiar sandalwood fragrance seeped into her nose. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up slightly as her eyes overflowed with joy. Ah, Xian! Her hoarse voice called out the man's name delightedly. She slowly raised her eyes. The man in front of her was dressed in a purple robe with peerless elegance. His face, which was as handsome as a god, was reflected in her eyes at close range. Like ink peach blossom eyes, lingering with flowing light. No matter how one looked, it was so cold that it made one sink in and suffocate. Only, when Yiqing Luo's vision fell into Dmo Xian's eyes, her heart twitched fiercely. Between the man's brows, there was an unconcealable look of exhaustion. Under both sides of the corner of his eyes, there was a light green color. Apparently, these few days when she was unconscious, Dmo Xian hadn't closed his eyes to rest. Ah, Xian! Yiqing Luo opened her mouth softly and called out to him. Her tone was filled with heartache. She struggled to raise her hand, trying to caress the man's exhausted brows. But, her hand, stretched out halfway, and drooped down weakly. Dmo Xian accurately held her hand and pasted it to his face. I'm here. The gentle whisper, like a warm current, flowed past. This scene was heartwarming. Some were warm, some were worried. The 5 maids, on seeing Dmo Xian, were so scared that their faces turned pale and their bodies trembled. Those who were timid directly knelt on the ground with a thud, shivering. Especially when they heard Dmo Xian's extremely gentle voice. The maids grew increasingly fearful. Gu Jingyu, whose face was red from being smashed and had a few cuts on his face, forcefully brushed away the cover on his face and glared ahead. Looking at the sweet scene of Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo looking at each other. His eyes were filled with a deep darkness. His fists were clenched tightly as he tried his best to control himself. His heart was filled with love towards Yiqing Luo as he gritted his teeth and bellowed furiously, Overlord, even if you're the Overlord, you can't force Qing Luo to be with you. Since you're not willing to give Qing Luo the status she deserves, then don't stop Qing Luo from finding her own happiness. His hysteria made Dmo Xian cast a sidelong glance. Dmo Xian's icy cold peach blossom eyes indifferently glanced at Gu Jingyu. His rosy lips curled up into an extremely shallow and cold arc. I know exactly what happened just now. His voice was flat, wrapped in a chill that made people shiver. Her words caused the 5 maidservants to collapse to the ground, their bodies weak and limp. Crystal clear. Which meant the Overlord had heard all their ridicule towards Yiqing Luo. Since you're clear, then you should know that Qing Luo will not be happy in the Imperial Palace. Gu Jingyu clenched his fists tightly. In order to fight for the love of his heart, he plucked up his courage and met Dmo Xian's gaze. Not happy. Chapter 30-26. Because you are Dizun, the superior Dizun. Even if Qing Luo is unhappy, it's impossible for her to tell you. Gu Jingyu's words were spoken with righteousness. In his eyes, that was the truth. He totally could not see Dmo Xian's feelings towards Yiqing Luo. He only saw that because of Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian's relationship, it had brought her so much trouble. Right now, a few small maids dared to come over and ridicule Yiqing Luo. If Dmo Xian really cared for Yiqing Luo, he would definitely give Yiqing Luo a proper status. Then he wouldn't have not revealed Yiqing Luo's identity in front of his own disciples and subordinates. It wouldn't be good for Yiqing Luo to encounter a situation where she was oppressed by a few little maids. "Young Lord Gu," a clear voice rang out softly. Yiqing Luo coughed lightly as she opened her mouth hoarsely. His voice was low and hoarse, but it had her unique charm. "Qing Luo, I know what you want to say. If he truly loves you, he should know that setting you free is the only way he truly loves you." Hearing Yiqing Luo's voice, Gu Jingyu opened his mouth agitatedly, as his eyes stared fixedly at her. "Young sect master Gu, have you misunderstood something?" Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as a sliver of suspicion flashed past her charming eyes. "Why do I feel like..." Gu Jingyu felt strange. In her impression, Gu Jingyu had always been a person who knew when to advance and when to retreat, and his temperament was as gentle as jade. In his memory, there was no memory of Gu Jingyu losing his composure like this. "I misunderstood. Qing Luo, ever since the first time I saw you at the Bu family village, in my heart and in my eyes, there was only you. I saw everything clearly. How could I have misunderstood?" As though he wasn't able to get Yiqing Luo's understanding and support, Gu Jingyu's eyes started to turn red. His entire body was tense and his emotions were extremely agitated. Yiqing Luo's brows creased even tighter. She glanced sideways at Dmo Xian's face. The man was expressionless, and there was no warmth in his eyes. But Yiqing Luo could feel it. Dmo Xian's current mood was extremely gloomy. However, no matter who it was, they wouldn't be in a good mood right now. Yiqing Luo frowned as she opened her mouth calmly, word by word, extremely slow and extremely clear. "Regarding your misunderstanding, I feel that as the person involved, I need to explain myself." She raised her eyebrows and continued. "First, if you really know me, you should know that I'd rather die in glory than live in dishonor. If I really don't want to be with Xian, I won't compromise even if he's the divine emperor of the divine world, let alone his majesty. Secondly, wherever Xian is, that's where I belong. Wherever Xian was, it was a meaningful place. The place where Xian is my happiness. Wherever Xian is, I will be happy." Third, Yiqing Luo's voice paused for a moment as she raised her eyes and took a deep look at Dmo Xian. Her gaze was full of tenderness. No matter who it was, they were able to tell that within that pair of alluring eyes, which had not the slightest bit of concealment, was filled with deep love towards Dmo Xian. Thirdly, to me, I don't care if the world accepts me as Xian's woman or the mistress of the imperial palace. The only thing I care about is Xian's heart. Chapter 30-27. Saying that, Yiqing Luo's gaze looked towards Gu Jingyu, as her tone was solemn and serious, "So, I'm very sorry, no matter if it's this life or the next life, or the future after that, I love Xian. My lover will only be Xian." Following Yiqing Luo's serious tone, without a shred of hesitation, Gu Jingyu's face turned pale bit by bit. His tense body seemed to have suddenly lost all his strength. He staggered a few steps back. Then, he sat on the ground in a sorry state. His eyes widened. He couldn't believe that Yiqing Luo had personally overturned all his understanding. He could tell. Yiqing Luo's words weren't because of any coercion. It came from the bottom of his heart. His voice came from the bottom of his heart. He could tell. Every time Yiqing Luo mentioned the two words, Xian. The gentleness in her tone and the obvious sweetness. "All of you. Which hall's female attendants are you from?" Dmo Xian's vision slowly fell onto those few female attendants who were kneeling on the ground, trembling non-stop. Dmo Xian's gaze locked onto her. The maids were so frightened that tears flowed from their eyes, and their bodies trembled uncontrollably. The feeling of death came. The maids were so frightened that they wept bitterly. They kowtowed desperately and begged for forgiveness. They knew that Dmo Xian pampered Yiqing Luo a lot. But he didn't know, Dmo Xian pampered Yiqing Luo that much. They had never seen such a gentle overlord when he looked at Yiqing Luo. "It's fine if you don't want to tell me." Dmo Xian's lips curled up slightly, the curvature of his lips made one's scalp numb. He shifted his gaze and said calmly, "Ah Feng." A gust of hurricane came from the dark and stopped in front of Dmo Xian. "Investigate the identities of these people clearly and drag them to the training ground," Dmo Xian instructed. Ah Feng glanced at the 5 pale-faced maids and said, "Yes, this subordinate will definitely give them an unforgettable memory in the training ground." With that, Feng quickly walked toward the 5 maids. Just as he was about to carry them away, behind him, Dmo Xian's faint voice was heard, "Wind." Ah Feng stopped and waited respectfully. "Remember to let all the Emperor Palace's disciples know the reason for their punishment." Following Dmo Xian's words, Feng's hand trembled as he grabbed the maid's hand. He was sure that the look on his face right now was extremely strange. "The overlord is, you want to clear the mistress' name. Using such a method to tell everyone in the Imperial Palace about Yiqing Luo's identity." Similarly, Gu Jingyu, who was extremely shocked, also thought of this. Gu Jingyu's face was so pale that there was no other color. Earlier they were still criticizing Dmo Xian for not acknowledging Yiqing Luo's identity, so the entire Imperial Palace refused to acknowledge Yiqing Luo as the future mistress of the Imperial Palace. Now, Dmo Xian was using practical actions to directly slap their faces. Dmo Xian's vision shot towards Gu Jingyu. He moved his 5 fingers and a stream of dark force shot into the air. In just a few breaths, a smoky green figure hurried over. "Lord Dizun, why did you summon me in such a hurry? Is there something important?" The figure gradually approached. "Wasn't that beautiful woman Tang Beiyuan? Personally send young sect master Gu back to South Tide Continent." Dmo Xian's tone was icy cold, but on his face, there was no trace of joy or anger. When Tang Beiyuan heard that, she instantly understood the deep meaning behind Dmo Xian's words. She raised her brows in interest, as she sized Gu Jingyu up from head to toe. This lad actually had his eyes on the woman in the overlord's heart. A vinegar jar like the overlord. Chapter 30-28. He clearly knew that he had taken a fancy to a woman he shouldn't have. You should have taken a detour. This kid actually dared to swagger in front of the overlord. Wasn't that courting death? In addition to that, Tang Beiyuan also noticed Yiqing Luo, who was nestled in the overlord's arms, wrapped tightly in a red robe. Tang Beiyuan's mind immediately conjured up an exciting drama. Dizun had specially summoned her to send Gu Jingyu back to Wine Valley sect. In other words, he wanted her to send Gu Jingyu back to the Wind Valley sect as a hall master of the Imperial Palace. This was also clearly telling the Wind Valley sect. The Imperial Palace was dissatisfied with Gu Jingyu. If the Wind Valley sect didn't want to be enemies with the Imperial Palace, Gu Jingyu's position as young sect master, he probably couldn't sit still anymore. Even if Gu Jingyu was the destined young master of the Wind Valley sect. In front of the interests of the Wind Valley sect, everything else didn't count for much. Tang Beiyuan sighed inwardly for Gu Jingyu. Immediately clearing his throat, he straightened his back and looked at Dmo Xian seriously. "Yes, Overlord. This subordinate will definitely complete the mission." Dmo Xian waved his hand and carried Yiqing Luo as he turned around and walked out of the courtyard. "This house is not clean, I'll bring you to another courtyard." "Unclean?" Yiqing Luo thought for a while before she realized the meaning behind Dmo Xian's words. Just now, Gu Jingyu seemed to have entered the bedroom. It was stepped on by Gu Jingyu, so it wasn't clean. This jealousy, it's a little strange, however, complaining was one thing. Yiqing Luo's heart still felt warm. Dmo Xian carried Yiqing Luo and walked to the door of the room. Sitting on the ground, Gu Jingyu's face was filled with shock as he clenched his fists tightly. His face was filled with anger and embarrassment as his face flushed red. Qing Luo. His voice rose in pitch. There was a hint of sharpness and ear-piercing in it. Yiqing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu from Dmo Xian's shoulder. Gu Jingyu's eyes were red and his muscles were tense. Are you telling the truth? You really don't have any feelings for me? As soon as he said that, there was silence all around. Tang Beiyuan placed a hand on her forehead. He had seen people who courted death, but he had never seen someone like this. At this juncture, Gu Jingyu still dared to say such ambiguous words to Qing Luo in front of the overlord. Was this to show his true love, fearless and reckless? In order to move Qing Luo, move himself. The atmosphere was strangely cold. After an unknown amount of time, the young lady who was leaning on Dmo Xian's shoulder had an indifferent expression on her face. Her pair of charming eyes were so calm that there wasn't any luster in them, as she fixed her gaze on Gu Jingyu. Everything I said was from the bottom of my heart. She answered without hesitation, and her tone was unprecedentedly serious and determined. Soon after, she raised her eyes and said word by word, "Before today, I admired your character and was very happy to have a friend like you." Friend, Gu Jingyu murmured these two words. Suddenly, he seemed to be crying and laughing at the same time. In other words, after today, you and I are not even friends anymore. Because you have feelings for me. Yiqing Luo replied straightforwardly, "My identity will not allow any opposite sex who has other thoughts towards me to exist." Just because of the overlord. Gu Jingyu's fingers clenched tightly. Chapter 30-29. Yiqing Luo's words were like a death sentence for Gu Jingyu. His whole body slumped down powerlessly, as though he had lost all his energy. But at the next instant, he seemed to have thought of something as he raised his head abruptly with a burning gaze. "I saved you. Saved you once. If you want to repay me, then don't be together with the overlord." Gu Jingyu's words came out of the blue. Yiqing Luo somehow felt that everything was strange. There seemed to be something strange about it. But, thinking deeply, she couldn't tell what was strange about it. Especially the request that Gu Jingyu raised, which made Yiqing Luo feel that something was amiss. Beiyuan. Dmo Xian was extremely displeased by Gu Jingyu's words as he called out Tang Beiyuan's name coldly. Tang Beiyuan quivered as she had no mood to watch the show as she immediately dragged Gu Jingyu away. Yiqing Luo stared at Gu Jingyu's body which didn't struggle at all. In Tang Beiyuan's hands, he was like a kite with a broken string, without any energy. Her slender brows creased even tighter. She opened her mouth. "Wait." Tang Beiyuan's footsteps halted. Immediately following that, Yiqing Luo's voice rang, "Yes, it's a fact that you saved me. According to morality, I should return this favor to you." Gu Jingyu's eyes lit up as he looked at Yiqing Luo in delight. "If it's something within my capabilities, I can do it for you." Yiqing Luo's gaze was like a torch as she met Gu Jingyu's gaze calmly, "But, if it concerns Xian, I'm sorry, I can't do it." Her gaze slowly shifted onto Dmo Xian's face. Her eyebrows became gentler and more delicate. Even the corners of her lips revealed a slight smile. "Whatever morality, in front of Xian, it's nothing. For Xian, I can even abandon the common people." She said it word by word as she looked at Dmo Xian seriously. This wasn't just a reply to Gu Jingyu's words. It was her promise to Aw Xian. The warmth between the two eased the stiff atmosphere. Tang Beiyuan didn't give Gu Jingyu any chance to create any more trouble as she carried him and slipped out of the palace. Dmo Xian continued to carry Yiqing Luo as they walked towards the new courtyard. Along the way, they saw many Imperial Palace's disciples in black training clothes. He could also see maids coming and going. When he saw this scene, everyone's reaction was almost the same. All of them were extremely shocked as they stuck their heads out, wanting to see exactly what that young lady looked like. Everyone in the Imperial Palace knew. 3 days ago, Di Zun brought back a woman. Rumor had it that she was the woman the Overlord doted on. It was obvious that the woman's injuries had mostly recovered on the day she was carried back to the Imperial Palace. He had fallen into a deep slumber only because he was physically exhausted. However, the Overlord had given her all the medicinal pills that he had been saving for years. As long as they were useful to her, he had given them to her for free. It could be seen how infatuated the Overlord was with that woman. However, hearsay was hearsay. It was completely different from the shock he felt when he saw it with his own eyes. When Yiqing Luo sensed the gazes from the surroundings, she couldn't help but rub her head against his chest. Her brows revealed a mischievous smile. So, this is the reason why you want to change to a new courtyard for me. Based on Dmo Xian's ability, he could totally bring him to the new courtyard swiftly. But Dmo Xian intentionally carried her, to be the center of attention along the way. Chapter 30:30. He was using his actions to show his identity in the Imperial Palace. Those 5 maids were personally punished by wind at the training ground. Then he intentionally announced the reason for the punishment. And because Gu Jingyu had improper thoughts towards Yiqing Luo, he was personally escorted back to Wine Valley sect by Tang Beiyuan. This was totally not giving Gu Jingyu any chance to make a comeback. Adding on to the fact that he personally carried her all the way to the new residence. All these added up were enough to shut the mouths of those Imperial Palace's disciples who were still guessing Yiqing Luo's identity. One must know. No matter whether it was Wind or Tang Beiyuan, they were all people who only listened to the Overlord's commands. Even the Imperial Palace's granny had no advantage over Wind or the armament refining hole. The Overlord had sent his confidant to do such an unimportant thing. It was enough to show how much importance the Overlord placed on Yiqing Luo. Hence, after Yiqing Luo was carried to the new courtyard by Dmo Xian, this news had already spread like wildfire in the Imperial Palace. From the start to the end, it had not even exceeded the time for a stick of incense to burn. No one dared to discuss it. But in their hearts, they couldn't help but imagine the young lady who could make the Overlord head over heels for her. Some of them used their gazes and expressions to communicate silently. Following that, the matter of Wind carrying those 5 maids and throwing them into the training ground was also spread. Immediately, the entire Imperial Palace was in an uproar. Looked like their Imperial Palace was really going to welcome their female mistress. The Imperial Palace's disciples looked at each other in dismay as they discussed in whispers. No one had discovered it. On the training ground, the 2 training team leaders who were standing on both sides exchanged glances. Following that, one of the training team leaders quietly left the training ground. Very quickly, the training team leader went around the main road and took an extremely secluded path. This path was something that even the janitor who cleaned the Imperial Palace would rarely go. Not to mention the other people in the Imperial Palace. The training team leader's footsteps were extremely fast. The withered leaves beneath his feet were rustling as he stepped on them. After a while, the training team leader stopped beside a fake mountain. He knocked a few times on the fake mountain. The pace was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. But moments later, the entire fake mountain suddenly shook slightly. Behind the fake mountain, a man in black attire with a murderous look walked out. This man could be seen from his temperament and attire. This was a death warrior. The captain lowered his voice and said, "Go and report that the overlord has brought back a woman." The overlord had sent Protector Feng and Hall leader Tang to support that woman in front of everyone. The news has already spread throughout the Imperial Palace that this woman will be the future mistress of the Imperial Palace. The man of death did not say a word and just stared at him quietly. The captain shook his head, indicating that he had no other information. The death warrior turned around and quickly disappeared behind the rockery. When Dmo Xian carried Yiqing Luo into the new courtyard, Yiqing Luo's pupils couldn't help but widen. She straightened her back in shock as her charming eyes stared blankly at Dmo Xian. This is you. When Dmo Xian lowered his eyes to look at her, the expression on his face was extremely gentle. "Ever since I returned from the 21st century, I've been preparing this courtyard." His voice was low and husky like a feather, brushing against her eardrums and heart. "Do you like it?" Chapter 30-31. How could she not like it? From the moment they stepped into the courtyard. From the beginning to the end, it was built in the style of the 21st century. What came into view was a large green lawn. It was surrounded by beautiful purple and red flowers. Pure white walls and carved iron fences. On the left side of the flower bed and the resting pavilion wrapped in vines, there were 2 swings. If she remembered correctly, the style of this lawn was roughly similar to the Century Park in the 21st century. Dmo Xian carried her and walked further in. After the lawn, there was a small training ground. Further in, it was a very modern room. Walking into the main room, there was a huge living room. The floor was covered with a very soft carpet. Yiqing Luo could tell at a glance. This carpet was made with at least hundreds of precious feathers, with the most exquisite craftsmanship. If an ordinary person were to obtain such a blanket that could wrap themselves up in it, they would want to hang it on their body every day. But here, it had become a carpet. Furthermore, almost every room was filled to the brim with blankets. The guest room in the backyard was at least a few hundred square meters. Every corner was covered with such precious blankets. How many precious feathers did it take? The interior decoration was also completely in line with the modern style. Tables, chairs, and the surrounding furnishings were all built up. There was even a sofa. Especially when Yiqing Luo raised her head, she saw a few dazzling chandeliers hanging above the eaves. On that chandeliers, there were thin and small luminous pearls, flickering. Yiqing Luo was completely stunned. How did you make so many things? Yiqing Luo's eyes widened, filled with disbelief. One must know, these things. In the 21st century, they could be seen everywhere. But in the Nirvana realm, it was impossible to have them. Whether it was this smooth and transparent table, or the soft and comfortable sofa, or that dazzling chandeliers. None of these were things that could possibly exist in this era. Yiqing Luo could be sure. These were absolutely not brought back from the 21st century by Dmo Xian, who had the ability to travel through time and space. These things, at first glance, were indeed extremely similar to those things in the 21st century. But if one looked closely, he could still tell the difference. Everything that was filled with the style of the 21st century was made little by little using the things from the Nirvana realm. Yiqing Luo's heart was beating wildly, as though it was about to gush out from her throat. She struggled a little, wanting to touch these familiar things. Dmo Xian hugged her tightly. "This place belongs to you. Put on your shoes and you can take your time to look around. He carried her into the bedroom. Just as he pushed open the door, Yiqing Luo was shocked by this scene. The whole room was filled with pink hues. Pink walls, pink curtains, pink soft bed. Yiqing Luo raised her head and stared at Dmo Xian suspiciously. Could it be that her man had other hobbies? What's with this pink screen? You don't like it? The smile on Dmo Xian's face froze as his peach blossom eyes revealed panic and helplessness. I thought you would like. Chapter 30-32. Dmo Xian didn't reply. He held her hands together, his large palms were warm. I remember, in that plane, the place where you grew up. When you told me about your past, the glow in your eyes. His voice was very gentle. Mellow, like a fine wine. Bit by bit, it intoxicated Yiqing Luo. I know, you like that place where you grew up very much. But, you are my woman, in the future, you will always be with me, living in this world. Dmo Xian's hand slowly moved upwards. His slender fingers, with thin calluses, caressed the skin on Yiqing Luo's face. This is a place of remembrance for you. If you want to go to that plane, you can stay here. His gaze slowly swept across the surroundings, that pink-colored environment. Do you still remember, in that plane, when you told me about your past, what you said to me? The hair on her forehead was brushed aside by the man's gentle fingers. Yiqing Luo's slightly red eyes trembled. She looked at Dmo Xian's peach blossom eyes, which contained a pool of spring water. The rippling light in his eyes, as though it wanted to swallow her up, so that she couldn't escape. You tried this color dress. Dmo Xian looked at Yiqing Luo's bewildered eyes, staring at him in a daze, with a face of infatuation. He couldn't help but laugh. He raised his hand, lightly tapped on Yiqing Luo's forehead. That gaze was filled with love and helplessness. Simply too sweet. After Dmo Xian's reminder, Yiqing Luo, who was immersed in beauty, suddenly remembered. Back in the 21st century, she indeed pulled Dmo Xian to go shopping. And specially tried on an extremely Lolita pink princess dress. At that time, she indeed said this to Dmo Xian. Ah, Xian. Actually, when I was very young, I wanted to be like ordinary girls, to paint the entire room pink. Curtains, tables, chairs, sofa, everything, I want to make everything pink. But because of my identity, my world, other than black, there is only white. I don't have the qualifications to like any color. Yiqing Luo pulled back her senses from her memories, and saw Dmo Xian's extremely anxious face. As though as long as she said she didn't like it, he immediately tore down this bedroom and rebuilt it. This man, she was moved and amused at the same time. Because of her words, Dmo Xian really remodeled a room with a pink screen for her. He was putting in so much effort to make her happy, to make her satisfied. What reason did she have to refuse him? In front of Yiqing Luo's eyes, it was as if fireworks had bloomed. There was a warm current in her heart, filling it up bit by bit. Ever since she woke up, she had always felt that it was empty. Yiqing Luo's arms wrapped around Dmo Xian's neck, and without any hesitation, she planted her lips on Dmo Xian's lips. I like Ah Xian surprises, and even more. Ah Xian. The moment the girl's soft lips pressed against his, Dmo Xian's pupils contracted. He abruptly tightened his arms and deepened the kiss. Their auras intertwined. Until Dmo Xian noticed that Yiqing Luo's body was not used to such intense intimacy. After fiercely pecking Yiqing Luo's lips a few times, Dmo Xian released her. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she had lost all her energy as she laid limply in his arms. Chapter 30-33. 3,000 strands of hair, poured down. The young lady's eyes were like silk, her cheeks flushed red. Because of the kiss, her eyes were half opened, adding a few hints of enchantment and laziness. Dmo Xian's eyes drooped, as his breathing suddenly tightened. His body also turned stiff. How would Yiqing Luo not understand what Dmo Xian's reaction represented? Her cheeks turned even redder. Earlier when Gu Jingyu was about to barge into the room, she retrieved a stamina replenishing pill from the profound phoenix ring and swallowed it in a timely manner. After nestling in Dmo Xian's arms for so long, finally, she had recovered quite a bit of energy. And because of Dmo Xian's kiss, she was once again weak and powerless. And under this situation, she actually still wanted to continue. Yiqing Luo face-bombed. Her man was really poisonous, teaching a pure young lady like her bad. This is your home. Dmo Xian tightened his arms again, as the young lady's petite body stuck close to him. Although the strength was strong, but it was controlled very well. It totally didn't cause any uncomfortable feeling to Yiqing Luo. His voice was still that gentle, just a little husky, with some kind of suppressed emotions. He panted heavily as he changed the topic, trying his best to pacify his restlessness, no matter if it's the imperial palace or the upper realm. I will let them know, the only woman beside me is only you. Only, Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo raised her head. Her eyes reflected Dmo Xian's face as she revealed a smile. I will also work hard to catch up to your footsteps, and then let everyone know that my, Yiqing Luo's man, my husband, is you. Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian's eyes lit up slightly. His brows overflowed with a smile. Yiqing Luo's smile became thicker. Her curved eyes were tainted with a trace of craftiness. At this tender moment, Yiqing Luo suddenly moved her arm. The hands which were around Dmo Xian's neck moved to his shoulders. Following that, her waist borrowed strength and exerted force. The man's strong and tall body fell backwards. The soft big bed firmly received the man's body. Bright red flower petals were scattered on the pink bedding, giving off a refreshing fragrance. Dmo Xian's black hair scattered in between the petals, his purple robe also swept up a few ripples. Under the bright red petals, it made the man look even more magnificent and peerless, comparable to a god. Yiqing Luo's petite body covered his chest. She raised herself up and looked down at him. Her slender fingers caressed his face bit by bit. Between his eyebrows, there was a wide smile. The girl bent down, her fine black hair falling on the man's body. Her lips curved into a charming smile and her fingers moved to his thin lips. I like Xian's surprises very much. So, no matter what, I should return the favor. Her voice carried a unique charm and coquettishness. A pair of charming eyes gleamed with a charming and spirited light. Every smile, every frown, every movement was filled with charm. Dmo Xian's pupils contracted fiercely and there seemed to be some kind of emotion in his eyes, as it kept on surging. Just like a beast that was about to break out of its cage. Dmo Xian's change, Yiqing Luo naturally saw it. Her lips curled upwards, her smile became more and more charming, her body also followed closely, slightly lowering a little. Chapter 30-34. Lil Luo, He had to admit that the young lady's action made his eyes light up quickly. Dmo Xian called out Yiqing Luo's name hoarsely as his breathing became heavier. Yiqing Luo, who got the response, her eyes curved even more seductively. She was like a blossoming rose, emitting a fatal charm. Her hand slowly moved from Dmo Xian's lips to his chest. My return gift is. Yiqing Luo's hand, bit by bit, pulled open Dmo Xian's robe, revealing the man's underwear, as well as that large expanse of white and radiant chest. Her hand gently touched his chest. Dmo Xian's eyes instantly darkened, and what followed was a surge of turbulent sparks. His body moved slightly. His thick palm was about to grab Yiqing Luo's wrist to stop her following actions. But, at the next moment, Yiqing Luo's palm pressed on the area of his heart. The young lady's soft touch made Dmo Xian's body stiffen instantly, as his gaze unknowingly trembled. But the young lady had no intention to continue. She curved her long and narrow eyes. Those resplendent eyes were like stars embellished. Just like that, smiling, her palm pressed on his heart, not moving away. A burst of profound energy from the young lady's palm was transmitted into Dmo Xian's body. Dmo Xian's red eyes retracted a little. Didn't Qi tell you, I'm already fine? He didn't stop Yiqing Luo's action. You've just woken up, don't waste your profound energy. It did. Yiqing Luo's smile was no longer the flirtatious charm which she intentionally teased Dmo Xian, but a rare seriousness. But, I need to confirm it personally, before I can be assured. Before the goo worm, when Dmo Xian was in the upper realm, because he withdrew his clone to protect her, he suffered an internal injury. Later on, under the corrosion of the goo worm, switching back and forth the goo worm's mode, caused a huge damage to his body. Even though Qi confidently told her that Dmo Xian's body had recovered fully, and had advanced, she still wanted to confirm it personally. Warm profound energy slowly spread through Dmo Xian's limbs and bones. After a full cycle, Yiqing Luo then removed her palm and propped herself up. You're smart, you didn't lie to me. Dmo Xian's body indeed didn't have any abnormalities. His heart, which had been hanging in the air, was finally at ease. Her hand had just moved away from his chest. The man, who had been lying on the bed obediently, suddenly moved his hand and grabbed her wrist. Is this your gift? Yiqing Luo's expression froze. Her cheeks were tinged with a trace of redness. The large palm on his wrist was like a ball of raging fire. She could clearly feel the heat from the man's body. Yiqing Luo's pink lips, which had been kissed till swollen, pursed her lips slightly as she lowered her eyes and whispered, personally examining your injury, isn't that a return gift? You want to stop halfway through your flirting? The man's low and husky voice revealed endless magnetism and evilness. Even if I agree, do you think this place will agree? His pointed words made Yiqing Luo's face turn even redder. Alright, facing Dmo Xian. She had the courage to flirt with him. But she didn't have the courage to be flirted with. After all, her flirting with him and him flirting with her were totally not on the same level. The minute Dmo Xian flirted with her, she would throw away her helmet and armor in minutes, surrendering and admitting defeat. Chapter 30-35. Yiqing Luo had just finished her words. Her waist was lifted up by a force. Immediately following that, she fell onto the soft big bed. The man's warm body pressed tightly against her. She and Dmo Xian exchanged positions. A very orthodox position. Male on. Female on. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes trembled violently, her little hands curled up slightly as she clutched Dmo Xian's collar tightly. When she opened her eyes, she met the man's handsome face. Especially that pair of long and narrow peach blossom eyes, which were like stars embellished with flowing lights and vibrant colors, were absorbing her soul bit by bit. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly accelerated. The man bowed his head, raised his eyebrows and smiled lightly, his thin lips pressed on the skin of her face, slowly moving downwards. Finally, it stopped at her lips. A warm and elegant breath wrapped around Yiqing Luo, causing Yiqing Luo's delicate body to tremble from time to time. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but close her eyes. Delicate moans, the breath also became warm. The man's thin lips pressed down. A very gentle, very loving touch. The elegant sandalwood smell lingered between the two. Yiqing Luo's state of mind, gradually, was confused. But, just when Yiqing Luo thought Dmo Xian was going to continue the next step, Dmo Xian slowly propped up his body, lying sideways next to her. Yiqing Luo closed her eyes, waited for a long time, and sensed that something was wrong. The moment she opened her eyes, she saw Dmo Xian by the side, smiling at her elegantly. In his eyes, there was an obvious teasing smile. Yiqing Luo's face, instantly, turned red. You did it on purpose. This man, actually, after teasing her, he just stood by and watched. Was he deliberately trying to see her embarrassed? Dmo Xian laughed lightly. In the laughter, there was endless husky magnetism. His hand, stretched over, embraced Yiqing Luo's delicate body. Yiqing Luo struggled, puffed up her cheeks and said angrily, "You are rejecting my gift. If you don't want it, I won't give it to you." Dmo Xian laughed even more joyfully. His long arms tightly encircled her, covering the young girl's petite body, completely in his chest. The man's slender fingers gently slid over the young girl's back. Her movements were extremely gentle. Why would I reject this reciprocal gift? Dmo Xian leaned close to her ear as he chuckled, "Don't tell me you still can't feel it." As he spoke, he moved a little. How could Yiqing Luo not feel it? Her face was getting redder. She lowered her head, bit her pink lips, and squeezed her head against the man's chest. Dmo Xian sighed softly and tightened his arms even more. "Don't move. If you move again, I might really not have the willpower to take care of your body." A certain softness in Yiqing Luo's heart seemed to have been poked. The resentment in her eyes instantly became as gentle as water. This man, no matter how unbearable it was for him to endure it, he was also thinking about her body. He woke up after sleeping for 3 days and 3 nights. Even if he had the essence chi pill to replenish his energy, he was afraid that he would not be able to withstand Dmo Xian's demand. She was very clear about this. She just felt uncomfortable looking at Dmo Xian. But she couldn't bear to do it. So there was that scene of her handing herself over. Yiqing Luo's pink lips rose, smiling contentedly as she hugged Dmo Xian's waist with both hands. "Ah Xian, you're so good." Dmo Xian smiled bitterly. This compliment, I really don't want it. God knows if he could continue to restrain himself. The little woman in his arms didn't understand how attractive she was to him at all. Chapter 30-36. This smile was so enchanting that it could cause the downfall of a nation. But this enchanting smile made Dmo Xian's brows twitch as an ominous premonition arose in his heart. As expected. The next moment, Yiqing Luo's alluring face was already close to him. She opened her mouth and bit his neck with her pink and moist lips. She didn't use much strength, and her little tongue touched from time to time. Dmo Xian's eyes darkened as his fingers clasped the young lady's slender waist tightly. "Lil Luo, don't play with fire." Yiqing Luo giggled, her smile was devilish and charming. Her petite body in his arms arched here and there, endlessly seeking death. Yiqing Luo stuck close to Dmo Xian. Naturally she could clearly feel his body's reaction. Lil Luo. Air. Dmo Xian gritted his teeth, be careful of self-immolation. That suppressed word seemed to be squeezed out from the gaps of his teeth. I'm not playing with fire, I'm just weak and have no energy, no matter how I lie down I can't sit still. Yiqing Luo deliberately used a coquettish tone as she acted coquettishly, rubbing her little face into Dmo Xian's arms. This rubbing decisively made Dmo Xian's body stiffen even more. Even though it was separated by a robe, Yiqing Luo could feel the man's body heat gradually rising. Seeing Dmo Xian's expression had turned extremely ugly and his eyes were filled with fiery red light. Yiqing Luo withdrew her hand contentedly and snorted, "Let you see me embarrassed, this is giving you a taste of your own medicine." Saying that, Yiqing Luo pushed Dmo Xian's chest away and was about to get up from the bed. The moment she sat up straight, her wrist was suddenly pulled by the man's strength. She fell into the man's arms once again. What greeted her was an overwhelming masculine aura. The overbearing kiss made Yiqing Luo stunned. Until Dmo Xian's white palm probed her skin. The slightly cold fingertips made Yiqing Luo quiver. Her eyes were misty as she stared at Dmo Xian, making the last struggle. Xian, my body has no energy, no energy. She hadn't finished her words. The man pulled her hand down. Yiqing Luo's hand trembled, but she wasn't able to fight against his strength. The man's husky and magnetic voice carried a bewitching charm as he whispered into her ear, "Lil Luo, there are many other ways that don't consume energy. Extinguish the fire." He deliberately lowered his voice when he said the last two words. It was very seductive. Yiqing Luo instantly wanted to cry but had no tears as her heart was filled with vexation. As expected, she had no chance of winning in flirting with Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian flirted with her at any moment. Yiqing Luo vs Dmo Xian, the nth round. Once again, Yiqing Luo fell into a deep sleep in this pink bedroom, which ended. When Yiqing Luo woke up again, it was already noon the next day. She opened her eyes. Dmo Xian was already dressed neatly as he sat by the side, handling the important affairs of the imperial palace. He was well dressed and had an outstanding temperament. He was completely different from the beast from yesterday. Yiqing Luo moved and was just about to lift the quilt on her. However, her hands were so sore that she sucked in a breath of cold air. Especially her 10 fingers, as though they had been cut off and reassembled. Thinking of yesterday, Dmo Xian said to extinguish the fire without consuming energy. Yiqing Luo was so embarrassed that she couldn't wait to bury herself into the pillow. She swore that she would never flirt with Dmo Xian, that beast, ever again. Yiqing Luo's voice attracted the man's attention. Chapter 30-37. Yiqing Luo turned around with all her might, not willing to bother about him. Dmo Xian bent down and placed one hand on her body through the blanket as he spoke gently, "All right, since you're awake, get up and eat something. Although there are elemental pills to replenish your energy, but you still need to eat." Yiqing Luo twisted her sore hand as she pursed her lips tightly and even harumphed loudly to express her anger. The young lady's rare demeanor made the smile on Dmo Xian's face even more obvious. Only he was able to see such an agile little Luo. Dmo Xian's eyes were filled with adoration as he scooped her together with the pink blanket into his arms. "Even if you're angry, you still need to eat something first to fill your stomach before you have the energy to be angry with me, isn't that so?" This tone seemed as though he was coaxing a little pet, making Yiqing Luo's lips twitched. What did he mean by eating until she had the energy to be angry with him? At this moment, according to the usual routine, shouldn't he be hugging her and expressing his mistake warmly and apologetically, promising that he would absolutely not use this kind of method to torment her in the future? This man, why didn't he play his cards according to the routine? As though he could see through Yiqing Luo's thoughts. Dmo Xian's chin, separated by the blanket, pillowed beside her ear as he laughed softly. I don't want to lie to you, because last night was great. In the future, there will be more other ways to extinguish the fire, so I'm unable to give you this guarantee. Yiqing Luo. Towards Dmo Xian's words, she really didn't know if she should express gratitude or anger. In the end, Yiqing Luo was half coaxed and half carried by Dmo Xian as she drank a bowl of porridge which was made from precious herbs. After Yiqing Luo had her fill, coupled with Dmo Xian's intentional flattery and gentle words, the anger in Yiqing Luo's heart had more or less subsided. Dmo Xian knew Yiqing Luo's character, so he changed the topic. During this period of time, stay in the Imperial Palace to rest and follow me to settle the matter between Secluded Palace and Hell Palace. As for the West Continent, you don't need to worry. Yan Xiaoyi, Qiao Jin, and the others have already brought the Miao tribe's holy maiden to the West Continent. With the Miao tribe's holy maiden around, Long Yunzhan's poison will not be a problem. Mentioning this matter, how could Yiqing Luo still care about what had happened yesterday? Throwing a tantrum. She immediately sat up straight and turned her head. Went to the West Continent. What about the Miao people? The battle with the two from the Netherworld Palace. The entire Miao tribe was basically destroyed. When Dmo Xian appeared, he spared the lives of the Miao tribesmen on account of Miao Yi's help. However, the two from the Underworld Palace and the disciples from the Palace of Gloom had killed many of the Miao clansmen. At this time, Miao Yi was still heading towards the West Continent. Wouldn't that deepen the prejudice the Miao people had against Miao Yi? The survivors of the Miao tribe, including the injured tribesmen, number about 1,200 people. Dmo Xian rubbed her head. These 1,200 people, if after this huge battle, know how to unite and survive, it's not impossible to rebuild the Miao tribe. As for the Miao tribe's holy maiden, the Imperial Palace has sent out 2,000 disciples to stay in the Miao tribe, to accompany the Miao clansmen to rebuild the Miao tribe. The condition is in exchange for the Miao tribe's holy maiden, to work for the Imperial Palace for 1 month. The Miao clansmen will not agree to it. Yiqing Luo, indeed, it was impossible not to agree to it. Chapter 30-38. After all, the Imperial Palace's disciples were stationed in the Miao tribe. This not only represented that the Miao tribe had been rebuilt with an additional 2,000 men's strength, but it represented that the Imperial Palace had become the Miao tribe's backing. With the Imperial Palace's protection, the Miao tribe's future development would be much smoother. Moreover, the Miao tribe's holy maiden and the overlord's pampered daughter were brothers. Handing the Miao tribe's holy maiden over to the Imperial Palace, there wouldn't be any accidents. The Miao tribesmen naturally wouldn't be too worried about the Miao tribe's holy maiden. Miao Yi had sold herself to the Imperial Palace for a month for the Miao tribe's future. The Miao tribesmen were extremely grateful, so how could they possibly blame Miao Yi for leaving the Miao tribe at this critical juncture? When Yiqing Luo heard that, her little body pounced into Dmo Xian's arms as her arms wrapped around his neck and gave him a smack on the cheek. This man was always able to guess all of her worries, and he had arranged everything appropriately. Such a powerful man. To sweep away all the obstacles for herself. If she didn't work hard to raise her profound grade, to chase up to Dmo Xian's footsteps and work hard to walk side by side with him, wouldn't that be letting down Dmo Xian's efforts? Instantly, Yiqing Luo's fighting spirit soared as her little fists clenched tightly. I've decided, after the Nether Palace's matters are settled, we'll go to the East and South continents to get the sacred beast bead and head to the upper realm. Dmo Xian pinched her nose as he gave a low laugh. I thought you had already decided. You asked Qinhua Sect's sovereign to automatically send the black tortoise sacred beast bead to me, isn't it to let me make up my mind? Yiqing Luo shook her little head as the man's finger fell from her nose. That's not it, it's just the right timing. Dmo Xian scooped her petite body into his arms. I understand you, you're not someone who is content with the current situation. Yiqing Luo didn't struggle any further as she leaned into Dmo Xian's arms, placing her chin on his chest as she raised her head. This battle with the Palace of Darkness, this battle with the Hell Sept, I deeply understood the disparity between myself and them. If it wasn't for my God Relic and profound Jade Heart, I would absolutely not be Nether Palace and Hell Palace's opponent. Indeed, I am not someone who is content with the status quo. I want to protect you. I want to protect my friends, just like you want to protect me. I can't hurt myself every time to make myself stronger. So, I want to make myself stronger. Her tone was sonorous and forceful, and it carried a sense of determination. A pair of charming eyes emitted a scorching luster. 4 pairs of eyes met and Dmo Xian's eyes revealed a faint smile. That smile was peerless. His slender fingers were slightly cold as he gently stroked her forehead. He smiled, his tone helpless, but it was full of pampering. So, I have already sent someone to bring a letter to Xiaoyu, asking him to find the sacred beast pearl guarded by the Three Springs sect. Was this man a roundworm in her stomach? As for other matters, don't think too much about them. After you recover, I'll accompany you to the East and South continents. Dmo Xian pinched her cheeks. Don't think of sneaking in alone, otherwise. If I catch you back and punish you, you know it. Yiqing Luo, she inexplicably recalled the scene last night. Her face sunk, expressing that she didn't want to understand. Chapter 30-39. Regarding the secluded palace's matter, the Imperial Palace's disciples and Peach Blossom 3000 have already joined forces to investigate. Dmo Xian could tell what Yiqing Luo was thinking as he bent down and kissed her lips. I know you can't sit still. These few days, I'll bring you to the Underworld Palace to have some fun. By the time we return, the secluded palace's investigation should have reached the Imperial Palace, then we'll consider other matters. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up. Underworld Palace. But play is play, you have to listen to me. Dmo Xian poked Yiqing Luo's forehead as he looked at her sparkling eyes, his lips unknowingly curled upwards. No problem. Yiqing Luo nodded her head vigorously. As long as she wasn't locked on the bed, taking various pills to nourish her body. Nothing was a problem. Especially when she followed Dmo Xian to the Underworld Palace to have some fun. But Yiqing Luo's excitement and agitation vanished the next day when she followed Dmo Xian to the Underworld Palace. Because she was trapped in the carriage. And it was escorted by Little Nine, the noble sacred beast Nine-tailed fox. Not only Little Nine. There were also 4 fairy-like female attendants standing around the carriage. As for her, her range of movement was limited to this carriage. Yiqing Luo. She had no way to resist. She wanted to have some fun at the Underworld Palace. She could only listen to him obediently. Sit in the carriage obediently. Yiqing Luo put on a sour face as she watched a certain overlord casually throw Xia Ba and Leng Yan, who were badly mutilated, without a single piece of intact skin. Leng Yan was in so much pain that he sucked in a breath of cold air. His mouth, which had its tongue cut off, kept making, sounds. Xia Ba laid on the ground as he weakly howled, "Kill us! Kill us!" The ground was quickly dyed red by their blood. These two people's treatment in the Imperial Palace was really tragic. At this moment, 2 young men dressed in black, around 17 to 18 years old, walked over. You, bring them up. Dmo Xian instructed the 2 youngsters as he lifted the curtains of the carriage and stepped into it. The 2 youngsters carried Xia Ba and Leng Yan agilely as they walked straight ahead. His speed was extremely fast, and he disappeared in the blink of an eye. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes stared intently at Dmo Xian as he walked towards her and sat beside her. He even stretched out his hand and hugged her into his embrace. The corners of his eyes twitched uncontrollably. "You intend to let me sit in this carriage for the entire day?" Yiqing Luo elbowed his abdomen. Dmo Xian's large palm wrapped around her wrist. Lowering his head, his thin lips pressed against her fair neck. "I'm taking you to the underworld palace to settle the score." "So?" Yiqing Luo's delicate body trembled as she shrank back to avoid the man's mischief. "Although I'm a venerable sovereign, I'm taking you with me. I can't ignore the chief god's law." Dmo Xian didn't stop Yiqing Luo from avoiding him as he tightly rested his chin on her shoulder and spoke in a low and hoarse voice, "Bringing you to the Earth realm to find trouble with the underworld palace. There must be a dignified reason." Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes. She immediately understood the meaning behind Dmo Xian's words. Every interface had its own rules. For example, the lower realm did not allow people from the upper realm to appear. The upper realm did not allow people from the lower realm who did not have the qualifications to go to the upper realm to appear. Like Yiqing Luo, if she was brought to the Earth realm by Dmo Xian, it would be fine if she wasn't discovered. Once she was discovered, the balance historian had the right to detain her. Chapter 30-40. They were looking for trouble with the Hell Palace. Naturally, it would attract the attention of the people from the upper planes. Yiqing Luo's existence would naturally attract the attention of the people from the upper planes. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Dmo Xian had to have a reasonable reason. A reason which could convince everyone to accept Yiqing Luo, a person from the lower realm, appearing in the upper realm. In fact, to take action against the Hell Palace. Dmo Xian could directly take action. But Dmo Xian had taken into consideration Yiqing Luo's thoughts, so he thought of a way to bring her along to settle the scores personally. After all, when Yiqing Luo had the right to ascend to the upper realm, then she would settle the scores with the people from the Hell Palace. This heat had long passed. The Underworld Palace would also be able to completely disregard this matter. Yiqing Luo had been sleeping in Dmo Xian's arms. But moments later, Dmo Xian called out her name. She opened her eyes and the surroundings were pitch black space. She could faintly see a few wisps of strange aura floating in the air. That pitch black, meandering and spiraling, extended far into the distance, totally unable to see the boundary. Yiqing Luo merely used her senses to scan and understood. That was Xia Ba and Len Yan's evil qi. In other words, they had already reached the Hell Palace. Yiqing Luo was slightly shocked. Was it so easy to come to the upper realm? She didn't feel any discomfort at all. Sit here properly, leave the rest to me. Dmo Xian's gentle kiss landed on her forehead. When Yiqing Luo raised her eyes, she only saw the back view of the man walking out of the carriage. His purple robe billowed, like the rolling clouds in the black space. Silky black hair, scattered behind him. That posture, noble and elegant, like a god of the world, unattainable. The man walked out of the carriage in big strides. Ah Lei and Ah Yu, the two guards, were already carrying the two half-dead men, standing there waiting for orders. Dmo Xian's expression no longer had any tenderness and sweetness. It was a treacherous icy cold intent. He stood in between the guards and stopped in his tracks. Following that, his wide sleeves waved slightly. In an instant, an incomparably tyrannical energy surged forward in a direction that seemed to have no end in sight. Bam! That energy seemed to have hit the air. Endless dark force exploded in this pitch-black space. Powerful dark force enveloped the entire space. However, sitting in the carriage, Yiqing Luo didn't have any other feelings. She furrowed her brows. No matter how much Dmo Xian cared about her existence and restrained his power, it was impossible for her not to sense any energy. Unless, Yiqing Luo's gaze immediately fell onto those 4 female attendants who were brimming with immortal qi. Sure enough, there was a layer of faint purple light in their palms. Barrier. Dmo Xian conjured a barrier to protect the carriage. No matter how intense the battle in the outside world was, she, who was protected by the barrier, would not be affected in the slightest. Just as Yiqing Luo was in a dilemma about the enchantment. Suddenly, a rough voice rang out in this quiet, pitch-black space. What kind of dog is this? Do you know what this place is? Soon after, a hole seemed to be torn open in the pitch-black space. A huge door appeared out of thin air. A middle-aged man walked out from the door. He was dirty and unkempt. That middle-aged man rubbed his nose as he walked forward with a fiendish look. When his gaze met Dmo Xian, Chapter 3041. Lord, Overlord. The middle-aged man's face, which was so dirty that its color could not be seen, had now turned ghastly pale. His violent aura was also restrained. I didn't know that Overlord had arrived. Sorry for not coming out to meet you. Sorry for not coming out to meet you. No matter how arrogant the underworld palace was, no matter how disregarding the secular world. But towards the rumors of Dmo Xian, they had heard of it. There were also many brothers who died in Dmo Xian's hands. It could be said that the underworld palace could defy the heavens, defy the earth and defy the air. But they did not dare to defy Dmo Xian. Even if Dmo Xian just stood there, without saying a word, the imposing aura from his body was enough to suppress that middle-aged man, making breathing extremely difficult. This lord is here to send 2 people to the underworld palace. Dmo Xian's deep and cold voice was emotionless, without any trace of emotion. The middle-aged man only felt his heart tightening, as he raised his head apprehensively, looking at Dmo Xian. Who are they? To trouble Overlord to send them personally. Bam! The middle-aged man's voice just fell. 2 lumps of flesh and blood were thrown at his feet. Those 2 lumps were covered in blood. When they were thrown on the ground, they hit the middle-aged man's feet, staining with a large patch of blood. The middle-aged man suppressed the urge to stretch out his feet, to kick these 2 lumps out, as he asked in confusion, This is... Save me. At his feet, the person who was nearer suddenly grabbed the middle-aged man's hand, as he spoke weakly. The middle-aged man's face sunk. With his originally irritable temperament, how could he tolerate someone grabbing his feet? Previously, when he saw these 2 lumps of bloody things, it was because these 2 lumps were brought by Dmo Xian. Now, it was completely a body's conditioned reflex. The middle-aged man immediately kicked the person who was grabbing his feet, and sent him flying. Ah! The bloody thing screamed, as its body flew out. That bloody lump rolled several rounds on the ground. Finally, it lay face up, on the ground. Under the messy hair, revealed that, barely recognizable face. The middle-aged man's eyes widened, as he swiftly rushed over, Lord Hell. But, when the middle-aged man was about to rush in front of Xia Ba, an invisible force blocked the middle-aged man's path. The middle-aged man's pupils constricted. Seeing Xia Ba in such a state, he was so angry that his whole body stiffened. He looked in the direction of the power. Clenching his fists tightly, he suppressed the fear in his heart and gritted his teeth. What is the meaning of this, Lord Dizun? Which is to say, you admit that these 2 people are from your Hell Palace. Dmo Xian's eyes were indifferent as his chilly gaze swept past him. The powerful pressure caused the middle-aged man's heart to be filled with fear. He turned his head with an ugly expression and looked at the other person who was badly mutilated. Upon closer inspection, it wasn't difficult to tell that it was Leng Yan. Leng Yan was the most destructive person in the underworld palace. When the middle-aged man saw that Leng Yan was lying motionless on the ground like a dog, the middle-aged man's face darkened. He stared furiously at Dmo Xian. I wonder how did these two from the underworld palace offend the overlord? Lord Dizun is so ruthless. This lord had personally sent them back, is to have a good talk with the underworld palace, on how your underworld palace had offended this lord. Dmo Xian didn't have the slightest intention of being courteous, as his thin lips curled into a sneer. These words made the middle-aged man's face turn pale, but when he saw the two people lying on the ground, badly mutilated, you're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.